comments to start off?
I do.
Offices are opening as of today, so you can go to the counter and work with them face to face. Social distancing.
Water district too.
Well, I would assume, okay,
Yeah.
because I believe social distancing is still in effect. You have to wear a mask. Supervisor Barber is sponsoring several events to keep the Antelope Valley clean. We have a free dump day, so everything's free on October 9th from 8 to 2 at the Lancaster landfill. Did you guys want to post these on the website?
Yeah, I'm going to get them up.
Okay, so these will all be on the website if you want more information. Free mattress disposal events in the Antelope Valley at several public works offices on October 9th, 16th, and the 30th. That's a big source of trash here. Free tire disposal day free tire disposal is on October 23rd from 9 to 3 at 4 different locations in the Antelope Valley. And free hazardous waste and e-waste disposal is always available the first and third Sunday of each month at the Palmdale Waste Facility. She's also sponsoring a smart gardening webinar to learn how to conserve water, compost, and grow your own food. You can register at smartgardening.com. That will also be posted on our website. We have followed up with the MCUP project. There was correspondence on that. It was presented at the last ATC meeting. Per the adopted motion, we contacted regional planning and summarized our findings regarding the seed palette based on the biologist's recommendation and the need to replant junipers and control invasives. The response back was odd. They said they're consulting with the county biologist for final determination, but the biologist is the one that came up with the original seed list.
And all we did was reduce it.
Yeah.
We took their list and made suggestions based upon that list, made it smaller.
Yeah, so we eliminated grasses for obvious reasons. We sent a follow-up clarification that these items are the minimum required for concurrence on the project. There will be a hearing, but it has not yet been scheduled, and we did formal notification for section 21092 of the Public Resources Code. That's very important, so they need to notify us once we make that statement. Because we told the applicant that we would absolutely support their project, that we always call in and support projects as long as they're conditioned properly. So we have also followed up on the permit application for a 10,000 square foot commercial building that has been applied for the residents here. Regional planning has concerns about it too, and it has not as of yet entered it for processing, but they're going to get back to us. So I know, Troy, you asked me about that also.
Yes, very concerned.
There are.
Jackie, what street was that on? Because I didn't recognize, I recognized the name, but didn't show what it was.
My neighbor. Not Clay something.
Oh,
Cedar
it's
Cross.
Cedar Cross. Cedar Cross, sorry.
And so.
They want to grow mushrooms.
Is that what they said?
Yeah, that's what it says. I guess mushrooms are in high demand. That's what it says on the engineering plan.
Oh, interesting.
Oh,
Yeah. But why is it spec'd as an industrial building?
No,
commercial.
Commercial building, right?
I don't know. Tina, haven't accepted it for processing yet?
They said they had questions back and hadn't heard back from the applicant.
Oh,
So it's
yeah,
the
yeah.
last thing.
And so it hasn't been entered into the system, but somehow it ended up on the internet, so.
Yeah, no, I saw it. I'm just, because you can't put a commercial building.
on a residential.
Right.
Right.
But it's more like just an accessory building, right? Is what they're,
I-
it's huge, other than being huge.
Yes, other than being huge, I thought it was bizarre, and I thought, initially when I first saw it, I thought something like, oh, somebody typoed or didn't understand you wouldn't use a commercial building on there, and then looked at the size, and I was like, well, no, maybe they do want a commercial building, it's big.
Yeah, because it was what, 40,000 square feet or something?
No, it's
10,000 square feet, yeah.
But I don't know, so that's why we asked.
Yeah.
Because it was, all of those reasons seemed
It was very strange, yeah, but they had plans, which was
Yeah.
interesting.
And GT is a local, they're smart, they're good, so they plan, so there are grant opportunities for we got a notice, grant opportunities for trails and land acquisition. Grant applications are due October 28th. We had reached out before the last meeting asking what's going on. Clement did email us back, but I got it too late before the meeting started. So we've received a response from Clement, from Public Parks and Recs, that someone named Andrea Vona is the head of the grant section. Parks and Recs have offered to set up a conversation regarding what grants have been applied for to expand trails in Acton and other communities, and what they will be doing on this in the upcoming grant opportunity. So I need to know from you guys a few dates and times that I can give to Clement, Clement Lau, then he can get back to us. So maybe before the end of the night's over, let me know. So we did get that email from him. State grant, there is also state grant funding for outdoor programs to connect people to natural areas where there's a lot of money available in this. Minimum grant request is 20 grand, so it's not a small thing. School districts are eligible, so if you're interested, please get it, and as are nonprofits. And I think it's kind of like all about getting kids in a park or kids in nature. Please contact the town council if you're interested in the information. It wasn't anything we could easily post.
No,
it was just,
yeah.
So I think, oh no, there's also one other, we got a communication from a resident about a vacant piece of property where a bunch of people are living in RVs, and the RVs are piped into the ground, so the sewer is going in the ground. And so we reached out to every health department, sheriff's department, public works, regional planning, because we know that Supervisor Barker had gotten through, fortunately, a motion about 6 weeks ago to prohibit homelessness camps in high fire hazard areas, of which Acton is one. So they didn't define homeless camps, but I have to believe any reasonable person would consider a bunch of RVs living on a vacant property being permanently with generators running all the time, being a homeless encampment. But we got information back from Deputy Martinez that he had been out to the site, and because the people on the property are living there with the permission of the property owner, somebody I guess an automobile say, they can't do anything, which didn't make sense to me because I read the motion and it says prohibit homeless camps in high fire hazard areas. So
he said, I'm sorry, he said they couldn't do anything about trespass.
Well, they couldn't do anything about the camp because the people are there with the property owner's permission. So they're not.
Right, but they couldn't be pushed off for trespass.
Right, I think it's, yes.
Well, I'm not going to construe what he said. He just said that there's nothing can be done about it. So I don't, it makes no sense to me because they're contaminating the ground.
No. I think all the other issues with the, with the county and the health department are all things they can act upon. But I think what he was saying is he just
sheriff's department.
he himself could not move them off for trespass.
That might be true. But it sounded like he was answering to all of them because nobody else answered but him.
And it's been a couple of weeks.
It has, yes. So it's very disturbing.
Was this in Acton or is it?
Yes, it's up Shannon Valley. That's where the residents live. They want to remain anonymous, so I'm not
Sure.
going to.
Is there
regional planning is going out looking at that. I didn't ask them who enforces those fire hazard things, but because I got a copy of your letter,
you did?
email,
Yeah.
and I asked regional planning, hey, do you know about this? What's going on here? They said there's more stuff there. There's already a notice of violation on that place from the stable thing they got. They got some weird kind of barn structure there, it looks like.
There's the people who had the camper dog that attacked that woman and killed her pet.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes, that's
I think you
mentioned.
mentioned
They've been there for years. And
yeah, so that's apparently so they got a notice of violation there. I don't know if they got liens on the property, but it sounds like. But let me go and push at somebody on the high fire risk homeless encampment thing.
that would be great. I think what Supervisor Barker's motion was to come back with a thing, either a report.
I think so. Yes, I'm sure that's what it is. A report
But I'm
back.
hoping if you could push it to have, if you could have them define homeless encampments to include people living in RVs on vacant land with no septic.
And then further, what the proper pathway to get that started? In other words, is it through the sheriff's department, is it through public
Fire
works?
department, yeah.
Just so that way we don't need to shotgun blast everybody if there's a go here.
And actually, there's a lot of people who aren't squatting on land, they own the land, but they decided to put an RV on there and live there, up in the Llano, Juniper Hills area. There's a fair number of those up there. Sometimes they only come on weekends, but they scare their neighbors because they have barbecues and stuff like that. So, okay.
Well, I know that Deputy Martinez and the whole sheriff's department were really very good about because we managed to work with a lot of property owners and get them to sign those affidavits, and if they just post those signs every 500 feet,
Yeah, we could.
the sheriff's department can kick them off. But
This is a,
yeah, so anyway.
And it's a company that owns this. So I don't know, it's based out of the valley. So it's not like an individual owns it. So I don't know.
Oh, okay.
we we could talk, I don't, yeah.
I mean, that's the legal owner.
Yeah, I know, yeah, but I don't,
You know more about it than I do.
who actually is the owner?
Well, then that would be good, if you could email me that.
Oh, yeah, I can.
So, okay.
So you'll take care of it? Okay, all right, that's it on correspondence.
All right.
Unless I missed something.
I think so.
No, I'm good.
All right, Carlo.
Oh, good evening. I asked last week about the legislation on the housing, SB 9, SB 10, and I also got asked about the gun, so that's what I was going to talk about. The gun thing is, I'm not sure about. Excuse me?
Introduce yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I'm Carlo Basile. I'm a field representative for Assemblyman Tom Lackey. I'm a new guy, that's why I failed to introduce myself. And I know everybody, so I thought I just did but anyway, and if you need our office, 267-7613, I think it is. Oh, 63. Just call us up. And we have a lot of work to do with constituent services, EDD, disability, driver's license. It's amazing at this time of COVID, with everybody staying at home, that probably the workers for these places are staying at home, and so we've had some log jams that we can help clear up. So call us if you guys get into any trouble with the state. All right? State issue, yes.
Row houses.
Everybody's issue. Start at the bottom, county, go to the next level, state, go to the third level, federal.
I'm just putting it out there.
Keeping it on the,
Yeah, hey, get on that treadmill, and eventually we'll get them going. But I'm with you, I'm the neighbor, and I'm with you, and I want to see what I've heard, what I've been promised. But anyway, on the legislation report for the Sacramento, which closed, the legislature ended on September 10th. The governor has at least 30 days to sign legislation. You guys don't think it's that big, but you have to realize that probably 2,000 laws were passed.
Oh, wow.
Every year, 4,000 are presented. All right? So there's 2,000 laws. This is why I can't find the number to this one. But the recent gun legislation that I've been asked about, which was a kind of a gun grabber bill, was a bill that empowered the UC Davis Center for Violence Prevention. It will now have the ability to track gun and ammunition purchases throughout the state and correlate them with future gun violence statistics. I know, it sounds kind of...
So the state of California is giving away the...
Millions of dollars.
No, but the state is going to give away the information, identify individuals who have purchased guns and giving it to this organization.
Yes, which is part of the state anyway, but still, it's a different organization.
So anybody in this organization can find out who owns a gun and who doesn't own a gun.
And where they live.
unless you're a criminal. If you're a criminal, you don't have to tell them anyway.
Okay,
Yeah.
just so people understand what this really is.
Well,
This is a way
the other one is, it's gun violence. You drop your gun, bullet goes off, gets reported, it's gun violence. Wait a minute, you purchased how many bullets last year and the year before, and how many guns you have? It's not a good precedent, even if it's,
this is
even if they never go, they never look you up and dox you, it's still a bad precedent.
Is
And,
this passed or?
It passed and it was signed.
Oh, wow.
It's giving away your
So who
Friday.
are these people up at Davis? Are they just students that are doing this?
Well, they call themselves that, but it's a research facility at Davis. Colleges and universities make a lot of money by
Yeah.
having these research groups on their property, and it's kind of a symbiotic relationship. They get a contract, they pay the university leases, hire equipment, buildings. It's a weird deal. So it's kind of like, and every university seems to do it. It's one of their ways of making money staying afloat. But some of them like this have a strange name that I keep an eye out for. Interesting, Harvard, Stanford has one of the most conservative institutions like that. It's called the Hoover Institute. All right, so it's like, so it's interesting. It goes both ways. It's not necessarily a leftist group. It's not necessarily, it could be down the middle of the road. But this one didn't sound so down the middle of the road. And, so anyway, thank you for asking about it. The bill passed, it was signed. We don't know what's going to happen. All we can do is keep fighting, and that's what Tom Lackey said.
So is this just on new gun purchases, or are they gonna go back through the laws of
It
purchases?
seems to be new gun purchases, new gun and ammunition purchases. But anybody who has a gun, you realize, hey, you go shooting, you do this, you do that. 3 or 4 times a year, you're going to buy ammunition. At least. You
Yeah.
might buy it more often, but even if you just do a little bit here and there, it's 3 or 4 times a year. You'll pop up. All right?
So anybody will be able to access that information?
No.
Okay.
Until somebody hacks it.
Until somebody hacks.
Yeah.
Until they just give it.
Wait a minute, wait a minute.
Or they leak it
Stole
out.
my thunder.
Yeah.
If it's on a database, it's hackable.
Yeah.
I see that.
Yeah, I was just saying, yeah, nothing is safe. So if your bank can't keep criminals out.
But it's got your
You know,
address and your birthday.
Yeah, everything is great. Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm assuming, probably make, model, all of the goodies of what you have. So,
Yeah, why not?
and the good guys we have to worry about.
Well, they have to know where to go when they want to take it
That's
away.
what I mean.
All right, well, I'll leave it. No, I'm sticking for the other part. The other part is housing bills. Now, these housing bills don't seem to affect Acton, and I'll show you why. There's one bill called SB 8 that accelerates the approval process for housing projects throughout the state. It curtails the local government's ability to downzone, and it limits fee increases on housing applications, among other accountability provisions. It sounds really good. Basically, it's the state getting inside the county and local areas, or local government areas' ability to control their zoning. Here we're all zoned once or twice by the county. In cities, they actually have a process for zoning. It's pretty fluid. If you ever been in LA City, you look at the Great San Fernando Valley, there's 2 million people in it. If they infill, there'll be another 2 million.
Yeah.
So that's what these bills are.
That is so sustainable too.
Yeah, can you imagine all the water? Well, up here we know about water, right?
Yes.
Anyway, so that was SB 8. SB 9 requires the local agencies to permit either one or both of the following: a development of a duplex of a single-family residence, a subdivision of a residential parcel into 2 equal parts. It does not allow the developers to purchase entire neighborhoods. Now, this bill, supposedly, after it's signed, does not apply if the parcel is not in an urban cluster or an urbanized area. So what's the definition for an urbanized area, an urban cluster? You have to, they say, it comes from the US Census Board. I don't believe Acton is either.
Well, we have what's called high-density development here in the downtown.
Or there might be a piece. So
But-
there might be a little bit of it.
Yes, but if it's done by census cluster, then it won't be.
Yeah, it's done by census cluster.
That's like a really
Yeah.
important. Is there anything in there about TODs though? Did they accept transportation nodes?
That's the next one.
Okay, all right, okay, all right, I'm getting it.
SB, yeah, you're getting ahead of it. Okay, SB 10 is the one about planning and zoning for residential parcels, and it's based on transportation nodes. But it has to be. It's not just transportation. It has to do with job-rich area also, and urban infill side. So remember that San Fernando saying that's an urban infill area, but a jobs-rich area.
So the
Could
original,
be parts of Palmdale, could be parts of Lancaster.
just to make sure I have it clear in my mind, because the original version of this, the SB 50 Scalpina bill, was all places where there was high-quality transit.
Yeah, basically, if there was a train stop or a bus
Yeah.
stop, that
Yes.
qualifies.
Well, this got rewritten, and it is weird.
Okay.
It got changed around. It's not just along transportation, it's also along jobs,
Okay.
and
So
So does it need either or both?
either one of them.
Wait,
It's not just both, it doesn't have.
No, I mean, like, what if you have transportation but you don't have jobs? Does that
That's
mean
right.
it could still apply?
so it does affect that.
Yeah. It's expanded, it's pretty expand.
Okay, so we took the position of oppose unless amended
Correct.
to,
But they changed it totally, so.
okay, we.
So they did amend it, they amended it the wrong way. That's what it sounds like. They said, oh yeah, no problem, we can make it worse.
Is it still half a mile?
I believe it is. I didn't look at the details, but I believe it didn't change that much. I remember reading about this months ago, before it got started. And it is, but it's like half a mile, but it's like, it has to be within the train station area. That was the original, right? But now it's in the jobs rich area.
Okay, so it is both, you have to be, okay.
It's not both, if you want, or if you
Here's the text of it. So notwithstanding local restrictions adopted in zoning ordinances, blah, blah, okay, so A, a transit-rich area, B, an urban infill site. C, local government shall not adopt an ordinance pursuant to subdivision on or after July 1st, 2029.
Okay, so it's a transit-rich area, which the train station wouldn't, I have to look at the definition.
That gets to the next thing, which is what he has.
Okay.
A transit-rich area means a parcel within 1/2 mile of a major transit stop as defined in section 210-6.
So we have to look at major transit stuff.
And
I
then,
don't think that this one would be, but maybe we should.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is there's
Or
a
high-
safety valve. There is a safety valve written in where the local government has to pass an ordinance to allow
Oh, thank goodness.
it. Okay?
That's
So the
regional
local
plan.
government here would be,
It's better than like nothing.
it's better than nothing, exactly. So, and there are some areas where it's a highly urbanized area, it's San Fernando, or it's LA City, or San Diego.
there's
There's never
it
gonna
says
be
the
a
bill
stop.
required ordinance to be adopted by 2/3 vote of the members of the legislative body if the ordinance supersedes any zoning restrictions established by
Yeah.
local initiative.
Okay, so that's good.
How do you like that?
Well, okay, so, but just so you are aware, when the AV plan came out, the draft in 2014, they made Vincent TOD in that plan and in the general plan, and we managed to get that off.
Yeah.
So it's been on their radar, so, you know, that it's a protection, but not a huge one, but anyway.
Yeah, there's an escape valve, but, all right.
Thank you.
that was it.
Thank you
Those
very
are
much.
the three.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, appreciate
Thank you. And if, from the camera, call the office, 661-267-7613. 661-267-7613.
Okay.
Jeremiah,
Yes.
we've got Jackie Owens here too.
Yeah.
She's not on the agenda, but I know she's got a report. She's
Yeah,
from,
please, come
I
on.
was just gonna ask if we could.
Yeah,
put her up
absolutely.
again.
Greetings, town council and members. Just a brief update from Congressman Garcia. Do you mind if I put this on?
That's absolutely fine.
So, I know that the illegal growth is an issue, and I'm going to close with that. That's going to be the pistol resistance. And then my friend Chuck is going to also add to that, I'm sure. So, right now, and if you're following what's happening in Washington, it's the great divide. There's so much infighting going on. But the House did pass the National Defense Authorization Act. And where that becomes significant to us is, for the most part, it was a very, very good bill. And there were a number of fundings that will have an effect on our district. So just to break down some of it, there was, in the National Defense for 2022, $351 million for the Triton project, which is out of Northrop. It's going to keep some folks employed for a while. $29.9 million for the B2, $1 billion funded for 12 additional Super Hornets. One of the things the Congressman was working on and really pushing for was a pay raise for our military folks to get them above the poverty level. That didn't make it in the NDAA. Unfortunately, the current law, the bill is just 2.7% pay increase for our military. So there was a pay increase, but in the Congressman's opinion, not enough to help the military men and women to get above that, especially coming in, the new recruits coming in, the low end of the scale. A couple of other things with that, in the bill, he co-sponsored a bill for military spouse reciprocity. So what that translates is, if my husband was an airman at Edwards, and I was a credentialed teacher, and we got relocated from Arkansas, and my teaching credential was was current in Arkansas, but in California, I had to start all over again to get my credential. So while my husband's serving, I'm having to not work and go through the extra expense of having to get my license up to speed. That's really had a significant impact in the military family and the morale for the non-military spouse. So that bill was now accepted into the NDAA, which is really, really great. So that it's really going to help with recruiting and retention for our military men and women. And that was a big plus for the congressman and for our military. So I think that's pretty much as far as what's happening here for us.
It's got to go still to the Senate, correct?
Yeah.
And where does Mr. Garcia stand on that?
You know, I don't know. He's not come out with a statement. He took a survey. If you were part of the community town hall meetings he had, interestingly enough, it was about 55 being in favor. Then we've got a lot of constituents call back and said, well, wait a minute, I said yes, but if you remember the timing on that was right after Texas came forward with their abortion, the bill to make it illegal for abortions. So a lot of, especially women constituents call back and said, wait a minute, if I can't choose what I do to my body and men can, why am I going to be signing up for selective service? So I think that the numbers that we saw were skewed because people came back and felt like they had to have a further explanation. And the whole abortion piece was a big part of it. Interestingly enough.
Well, yeah, it seems like none of that belongs in a funding bill in the first place. And nobody that we sent to Congress ever said that they supported this idea. That suddenly, to get pay raises and other things, we're going to accept this. It seems bad government, bad policy making, in my opinion.
You're preaching the choir, Tom.
But at what point does Mr. Garcia say, you know what, we're just not going to vote for this thing because it's not a funding bill, it's a policy changing bill, and this is what we need from the few people that we have out there that actually care. And I know he's very pro-military, and I want our military people to get our raises, and the reciprocity thing sounds fantastic, but at some point they got to draw the line. Nobody discussed this. Suddenly it's there, and we're all it's going to shove down our throats.
Yeah. No,
I'm totally against this draft of girls.
yeah.
It interferes with their college education, it interferes with everything. Why are we having, if a girl wants to go into the military, they can go do that right now. Why do they need to be drafted?
Are they planning on a war? That's why they're thinking of drafting girls too?
Well, that's what I think, it's just registering for them.
They're just registering,
yeah.
It'll be
selective
drafted
service.
at some point.
So, let me address Tom's comments, and I guarantee, get this on film. When I walk out of here, not everyone's going to be happy with me or the congressman. I want you to love the congressman because I think he's absolutely remarkable. But obviously that really doesn't mean anything to you because you have your freedom of choice, and I'm not trying to take that, but he's pretty extraordinary. What I've learned is when a bill comes before the House, and especially a very divided House and Senate right now, the left is trying to push so many things in there. They're drunk with power, and they're trying to put things in there. If you just look at the transportation bill, they're trying to identify transportation as a social entity now. It's morphing into something that was never really ever what we would have considered
equity.
Transportation. So the congressman absolutely will not support a $3.5 trillion infrastructure bill. He is in favor. He's come out and said publicly, $800 billion is good. It meets our needs. But there's so much stuff in there that he can't in good conscience put that burden on the taxpayers. If it comes down, they haven't voted on it yet, but if it comes out to around 1.5 trillion, it's doable. But there's still going to be things in there he against our bridges and our roads. Well, no, he's probably against, supporting cradle-to-grave social programs and putting that on the taxpayer. That's not what he's for. So, to go back to you, Tom, with the NDAA, he noted it wasn't a perfect bill. But overall, he took the majority we could work with and feel good about for the 25th district. But there was absolutely things in there that he didn't like. But it was a doable bill. It funded our military. And so that was his position. And that's his position. A lot of times, and all members of Congress have to come to that there's always going to be a piece of that that's just.
So, just you mentioned the infrastructure bill. So a very small percentage of that money is actual infrastructure. Like you said, most of this is human infrastructure or social justice or whatever you want to call it. Stuff that's going to burden us for the rest of our lives and our children's lives and their children's lives. So reducing that from $3.5 trillion to 850 million or whatever doesn't change all the human infrastructure we're going to put in place. All that's going to stay in there, and the things we're going to lose are the real infrastructure. So, is that the same thing? I mean, okay, well, it's down to 850 million or billion rather, then we'll vote for it. It seems to me like we really need people to stand up and say, this is an infrastructure bill. It only is infrastructure, which has a definition. Bridges, streets, roads, all that kind of stuff. In the meantime, we don't even have a digital divide problem in Los Angeles solved. And here we are struck with all this new stuff, which is going to be disastrous. So at the very least, I hope that he can stand up and say, we're not voting for this thing until all that's out of there. I really hope he does. It's unfortunate that our daughters are now going to have to sign up for the draft.
Well, let me say this, his website his communication team does a really good job keeping it current. So it's mikegarcia.house.gov. And on that site, go to the right, it's a drop-down banner. You'll be able to get the press releases, and I tried to send those over to you guys as
You do a
well.
great job.
Okay, so you are getting, okay, good. Also, any current events, and also what he's voted on, and if he's come out and made a statement. If he's not made a statement on something, I know, the congressman, I kind of know what he would say, but I can't comment if he's not made a comment.
No, I understand.
That's not my role. But
And honestly, he's not even my congressman. we're outside the line, but it is active.
so you just put me through all that for nothing.
No, but we feel like he is. Even though we're in Judy Chu's district, we still feel that Mike Garcia is looking after us.
As a constituent of my
We do. So if he has
She
any
doesn't respond.
fix this.
Jackie, did he make a comment at all about the Americans still left in Afghanistan?
No, actually, I was just asked that when I came in. I know it's something on his radar. Our office is getting a lot of calls on that, and he's aware of it. He's not come out and made a comment. I suspect he will, probably this week. After we had a staff meeting this morning, I think he's probably going to come out with something.
Are you going to still be here when we get to, maybe we can move the 12 up instead of disaster recovery, but on that RFI, DOE, can you still be able to be here?
Sure,
Okay.
yeah, I'll hang on.
Okay, thanks.
Just to close out, what you all came for was the illegal marijuana. So, forgive me if I'm repeating myself. I don't know who was here last time I gave a report, but the LA County Sheriffs, as you know, their budget's been cut, and they're being asked to do a lot more with a lot less. So that's the scenario, that's the reality we work in. The marijuana eradication team, which is operated by the narcotics detective, is funded through a DEA grant. Now, last year they funded it for about $500,000, and there's a cap, there's an overtime cap that our office is working with the DEA to ask them to remove that cap. It's a $19,000 overtime cap. Now, $19,000 in LA dollars isn't very much money, but in other states, $19,000 overtime is a whole lot of money. So it's really unreasonable to paint that number across all 50 states. So we're trying to, our legislative team and the congressmen are working with the DEA to remove so that the deputies can continue to work overtime on the Met team. The team is part-time. It's not a full-time team, and again, it's primarily because of budgets. Sheriff Villanueva is 100% behind this. He took a flight over the Antelope Valley, and he's talked to captains. And if you've ever heard him speak, the legal gross is the number 3 on his top 3 target goals to go after for LA County Sheriffs. So we have a friend in the Sheriff's Department. We're working with the DEA to get more funding. And we've also signed on, the LA County Sheriff requested a grant for about $900,000 for additional resources. And so Congressman Garcia supported that grant, we're going to support for that. I'm in communication, actually in a call, and I haven't heard back as to whether they've got that funds or not. I don't know if my friend in the back knows that yet, but I don't know currently if those funds have been received yet. Ultimately, what we would like to do is be able to fund this team full-time. And so our DC team is working really hard to work with all the federal agencies that can be part of this monstrosity called illegal grows. And as you know, it's not just marijuana, and I think that's where a lot of people lose sight because they go, well, it's legalized, so what's the big deal? We've got fentanyl in the street. All we've got in this illegal marijuana is a transnational criminal organization that is Armenian cartels, Chinese cartels, and the Latino cartels, predominantly Mexican. And so there's a lot of money behind this. And I think we saw that in the 10-day campaign when they spent, 10 days working in the heat, taking out $1.2 billion in street value, and to walk away for them to come right back behind them and start all over again. It's just disposable income. They don't pay taxes. I'm just wondering what Acton would look like and what the Antelope Valley would look like if we were able to tax $1.2 billion. And we put that money, I don't think we'd have an issue perhaps with the sheriffs not having funding. But that's untaxed revenue, and that was only a third of the illegal grows. And these guys know that there's not an appetite currently in LA County DA to prosecute. A lot of the arrests, they were out within 24 hours or less. So the other piece of it, what we're working on and seeing if we can do, is bring the federal charges into play on this. And I'm going to ask, I don't know who's watching this video, that part, if we can kind of keep them on ourselves. It's not necessarily something I want the bad guys to know.
Is there anything we can do
Is there anything you can do?
as a community to help get the grant?
I think, honestly, having talked to Detective Hawkins and his team, is that marijuana tips is really very, very helpful for them. Since that first meeting they had here, and initially it was just going to be for the indoor grows, if you remember they mentioned that. Well, it's been so successful, they actually just expanded it and said if you have, whether you're in the high desert or in Acton and Valley, the direction though is if you can just have the people who are reporting give as much information as possible. For example, if they see what kind of cars, those are significant, the types of cars, the detectives know. If there's children on site, if you see any guns, any weapons, any dogs, those things are really, really helpful so that when they gather up the warrants, they know what they're walking into. They have a little bit more information. And then from there, they prioritize where they go, depending on the reports that they get. They might sit down, I'll give you an example, Mono, Acton, and maybe High Vista. But then they'll get a call of a 12-year-old boy walking down the street in Lake LA who's being assaulted by a gun-wielding grower who's out in the middle of the street. Well, then that priority changes because that's a more of a dangerous situation. So then what their plan was for Monday, now Lake LA becomes the priority for the warrant. So it is fluid, and I think that's probably really frustrating for a lot of our residents because they said, well, they were here last week, but they forgot to grow over here. And that's why. Because they only have so many opportunities to do this, and they have to do it according to the warrants that they have and the time they do it. That one shot according to the rules. So that's what I have. I wish I could give you more absolute, like, we're gonna keep these guys and they're not gonna show back up, but we're not there yet.
Hey Jackie, today I got notified of another grow house. And since our last town council meeting, I've had notices of 5 new grow houses in Acton.
All purchased.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. And I've driven by them just to kind of check them out myself. I've got one that gave me a very detailed report today. But the problem is, I report these, we don't hear anything back.
Yeah,
I feel like, okay, I want some feedback.
yeah. I have a call in to Detective Hawkins. And
Okay?
I know when we spoke about 2 weeks ago, he was gonna try to come out with weekly reports, and that hasn't happened.
Mhm.
Only thing I can conclude is his full-time job is fentanyl during the day. So
Yeah.
they're finding the fentanyl front out there, and then they do part-time illegal marijuana. So I will include that when I get a call back.
Well, the report that I got today, the resident has been here for 10 years. He's going to move. He's got a drug house behind him and a new one. And it's rural, so they're not right on top of each other, but still. He's like, I see no point in staying here, simply because nothing is happening. And we can't figure out when or how the sheriff's department will even be out here to deal with this.
Yeah. You know, I'm not saying to not, I think be as honest as possible, but for example, we had a constituent who called and he was at his wit's end, and I heard small children in the background. I said, are you telling the deputies that you have small children and you're afraid for the safety of the children?
Yeah.
Those are the sort of significant things that bring in the priority list. And it breaks my heart. Pam, you're not telling me anything I don't hear every day when I take those calls, and I wish I could, I kind of wish I could just go out there myself because I get so angry. I actually got my car shot at by one of the growers during the Fox News. I'm sorry I couldn't give more positive news. That's where we're at, and I'll keep you updated as I hear about the funding, the grant. And I do know, I know it's frustrating. I'm a mom, I live in Lancaster, I see this. Like I said, my car was assaulted. But the men and women that put on their uniform every day, I've worked with them, they're extraordinary. They're as frustrated as we are. They're our neighbors. So if I can just ask you to be patient and just know that the federal side is working on it, the state side is working on it, and the county supervisor is working with us as well. So that's it. Any other questions for me before I go?
Where's the 900,000?
Did you want to come in? Did you want to give me your phone stuff?
I think they gave you wrong.
All right. 900,000. The deputies had asked for additional funding for equipment.
Is that from the federal government? or
Yes,
from
it's
the
part of
state?
it. It's an additional DEA grant on top of the funding that's already in place. The last report we had verbally from the DEA is, so there's 2 pockets coming from the DEA. One is the money to fund the part-time task force. And we got a verbal, whatever you need, we'll get. That money hasn't showed up yet, so we need it in writing and we need to check yesterday. Then there's the additional funding to supply things like 4-wheel vehicles to address some of the terrain areas they have to go into, equipment to go knock them down.
We're in Acton, and obviously Acton's lines are split. Does he work with the bordering representatives too?
Yes.
Okay. So when he's working on this pot growing, is he working with Judy Cheney as well? Is she?
Yes.
I know that most of her people are on the other side of the hill, but.
No, and it's impacting her district because they are in the forest. Representative Olbernolte, which is on the San Bernardino side, he's come on board and he's working with the congressman as well as congressman.
So he's not alone.
No, not at all. In fact, On a daily basis throughout the high desert region in LA County, there's about 5 million gallons of water a day being stolen by the illegal
I
growers.
know, there's a lot of problems.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's water through a drought, that can't be afforded. Can't afford to lose that, but it's an ongoing battle, that again, I think Chuck and Connie attest to. So it's all hands on deck. Representative Obernolte on board, Kevin McCarthy on board, to say, hey, this is impacting our region and all things in the state. Because there's a human trafficking component, there's an environmental toxin that I don't even think we have a clue to the depth of damage that these toxins have done. Did anyone see the video of the 2 bears? It broke my heart. These illegal grows have water pools. They use them to help water. So up in Lotto, they had a couple of beautiful black bears come down for drinking water. Well, water was cross-contaminated with some of these pesticides. 7 of them that we found on site are outlawed in the state of California. So we don't even know when I say the profound impact it's had completely, because it's draining into our...
Oh, it's terrible.
Yeah. And we've got reports from residents in the Eastern Valley who are seeing a reduced number of rabbits, hawks. So it's multifaceted. It's human trafficking. It's international cartels. We've got water down, theft during the drought, and environmental toxins that we don't fully understand yet to the depth.
If Congressman Chu doesn't come on board, can you let us know, and we will.
Absolutely, I'll ask her. In fact, I'll put a call in tomorrow and see if she's on board with that.
If not, we will do what we can to
Okay.
light a fire.
Absolutely. You know what, it's a win-win in a lot of things, because the water issue,
Touches everybody.
yeah, you're gonna turn on your faucet, nothing's gonna come out, so it's gonna make an impact. But I'll check on that, Jackie. and let
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, Sheriff Community Advisory Committee.
It's nice to meet everyone. I'm Marcy Calvin. I'm a new member to the Sheriff's Community Advisory Committee out of Palmdale. So I wanted to come introduce myself, that we're kind of a liaison type of committee, that we hope to foster you bringing complaints to me, and I'm hearing a lot tonight, so that's great. A lot of issues we're already talking about, certainly the grows being one of them. I actually have been a tipster. I had a grow near my home, and the Sheriff's Department actually took care of that for me. It's been a few years, but I brought it up to be with me tonight, who obviously has worked in this area too. So Martinez was not available tonight, so I wanted to have someone here to show our cohesiveness, that we do work well together. Captain was invited, and he lives in the community. Hopefully he'll be able to make one somewhere along the way. But we do work very closely. We meet every month with the captain. We have a town hall next month. Everyone's welcome. Of course, you have to drive to Palmdale, which is why I joined the committee, because I feel like our rural communities don't get much representation at the sheriff's station. So though we have a local deputy, and he's wonderful, I finally decided it was time for us to have a voice on the committee, because predominantly everyone on the committee lives in the city of Palmdale, and we don't get much of a voice. So I joined the committee to bring that voice to the captain and the sheriff's department there. So I'm here for you. I've given my email to Jackie to share with all of you. You can email me all of your concerns that might involve the sheriff's department. Of course, everything I heard here tonight, I've made a note of to communicate with the captain next week or the week after. And so I do want to invite you to share all of those concerns that you've been talking about tonight with me, so that I can also put pressure on the inside. So if you have any questions for me, feel free to reach out. I'd like to come to the meetings fairly regularly and bring you information too. So I just wanted to introduce myself. If anybody needs me, please reach out.
Well, we also put out to the community to let us know what they want, because
But
how many dumpsters do you need or whatever.
I want my trash can to levitate, I don't know if that's a possibility, because it sounds...
There's a way they will find the tax.
Here's what I'm trying to say is, it sounded to me like we have options we have to pick, but we don't know what those are.
Yep.
And they have not been presented to us. So, I want a bigger trash can, I want a smaller trash can, I want one that's it's, not glue, whatever it is, we don't know what to ask for because they haven't told us what we can have. And there's a secondary problem that we have, he was referred to by the waste management, the lady, I can't remember her name, the mom-pop operators. Well, we're currently being serviced by mom-pop operators who do a fantastic job. They come like clockwork, they take everything we have, they always show up, and it's great. And they're probably not cheaper than waste management, but comparable, maybe a little bit less. Right.
They're nicer.
Yes, it's very good. It's a little company and they do a great job. And when we have this franchise, they're going to get pushed out.
Yeah.
So this franchise, I don't know how this helps our community. If we're going to get, because we only have, once they pick a operator that wins the contract, I think it was very clearly said at the meeting, they are the only people that are going to operate.
That's correct.
And that is bad business.
Well, their philosophy is that once we get the franchise in, there won't be any more illegal dumping.
What planet does that make sense? Illegal dumping has nothing to do with who picks up your trash.
It's the same
And the fact that they're going to be able to serve all of us doesn't make it more affordable for everybody. It just makes
I think I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think if the trash company offers services that can prevent the illegal dumping, it would make it easier. I know for myself, having to try to get rid of appliances or mattresses, it's a complete pain in the ass. But, to have to drive all the way to the Palmdale line, fill, or sit in line and stuff.
Well, and I think that's...
It costs a lot of money.
Yes, and if the residents want anything like that, they can request it from the trash company to be put in.
Well, I look at like you compare like City of Glendale, right? Bulk you had to pick up anytime you call. There's not like one that you don't get like, well, you get a year. Yeah, one every 6 months. I mean, those are the kinds of things I think that we can do, but I think what I got out of that presentation was that, hey, what I wish I didn't have what's in front of me, but there was certain legislation passed at the state level that was going to drive into that, hey, this is what the franchise is. And they were taking that money and they're going to have a slush fund, essentially, to deal with the illegal dumping. So I don't know that they expected to...
Only if it's on the property taxes.
Correct.
So there's
there's a bifurcation there.
Yes, there will be a franchise. If it goes on the property taxes, it will be that you
Yes.
just described. If it doesn't, then it will not.
Then it will not be. The problem I have with that is on multiple levels. But one in particular is that there will not be enough slush fund money in the town of Acton to cover everybody else's illegal dumping that dumps here.
That's right.
So if it was just the people in Acton dumping in Acton, there might be a possibility that there would be enough funding there to be like, all right, cool, it could be clean. The problem is when you have illegal grows, you have all this stuff that I would consider that even though it's happening in Acton, not of Acton, it's not residents that live here and are, that's not gonna actually solve the problem. In fact, it'll actually perhaps exacerbate it because you're gonna have trash magically disappearing, people just drop off, right? So like, oh, if I put it there, it just goes away.
A lot of the trash isn't from the people who will be served by the franchise.
Correct, but I do think that if you start showing up in your property tax and people start, if you're local or whatever else, and you just know that, well, I throw it out in the corner of Sierra and whatever, and it magically disappears because the county company. But then meanwhile, it's pulling out that slush fund, that money runs out, like, well, we don't come out anymore. Like, I don't know what, they didn't explain that part, like, as far as, if it's on your property tax and there's this fund that's carved out that says like, well, we took 8,000 residents and this is what they pay in, and how many parcels and this is what the amount is, and we use that all. I mean, I think in the corporate world, when you look at like when there's like chargebacks to like departments, so like, hey, you have an IT department, you use $50,000 worth of service. When you run out of it, it's like, oh, it starts coming out bonus money and things. I mean, there's mechanisms. I don't know what happens once you exceed that. And I would think, based upon the amount of stuff that we have when we play whack-a-mole with the illegal dumpers, at some point they'll exceed that.
I would think that the largest trash company would have the ability to not even take state money for something.
Sure.
If they want a contract, they can do what they need to do. I worked, back in the day, I worked for the second largest, and I know what trash companies can do.
Yes.
And I think if they want to have a contract, they need to provide certain things that are for economic policies, such as mattresses. We're a place where we can take our mattresses, rather than
all the way. in
all the way to Palmdale and then have to argue with
Yeah, now-
appliances, those types of things. They can have one local area out here that the residents can take it to, because not all residents have pickup trucks that they, or trailers they can drive.
So,
To the dump.
I think there's two ways we could approach this. One is to just come up with our wish list and provide it. So this, we ignore waiting for them to provide a list.
They won't.
Which either they won't, or it'll be, we already voted on it, and here's the list of options that was narrowed down. Or we push again and just say, hey, we need that list so we can provide the list back to you. I think that those kind of are the two.
Yeah.
It seems to me they already know what they want to offer.
I think so too, but that's why I kind of like the idea of just submitting our list of what we'd like to see.
I think
And
we
then have
should.
somebody explain why we can't do those things.
Yeah,
Well,
And
and I mean, if you think about it,
they can provide anything.
Acton and Ottawa combined is over 200 square mile area. So it's not necessarily unreasonable to ask for a local place for bulky item disposal.
Well,
I don't
I mean,
think
if
so.
we're going to get full service refuse pickup, why not just do like they do in Glendale? You call and say,
Yes.
you know,
That's what I'm
it's the
saying.
fourth Monday or whatever,
Yeah.
or they come and they take your bulky items.
Yes.
Right.
Right, I mean,
that's
nowhere
fine.
else in the world you have to bring them somewhere when
Yes.
you're paying
Yes.
for
Okay.
trash pickup.
I requested to have a refrigerator picked up, and they wanted me, it was like a 2 or 3 week window.
Yes.
And I don't want this damn thing
Sitting
sitting
there
in
for
my
2
property,
weeks.
or in my front yard. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, the city of Burbank was like the fourth pickup
Sure.
day of the month or something. They would take bulky items and you just put them out on that day.
Yep, and then just,
And one other thing I heard from a resident is they just sold their house and they called to cancel waste management. And they now say that they need 90 days before they'll cancel their account. This person won't be living in the state when the 90 days
cool,
is
go ahead
up.
and send me the bill.
But I mean, that's, really, 90 days?
Alright, well, yeah, I don't know, I just, my personal 2 cents would be, let's submit them our list of requests, rather than wait for them to come up with their predefined.
I think they should have a small yard or a location, or like Tom says,
Yeah,
easier to come by our property and pick the stuff up. because
I think.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think there needs to be a minimum once a
But
month.
I thought that's what he said. When I was here, they were, you could call them.
Once a month, for every household, every resident. We want, recycle bin and a green bin, in addition, on that flat rate. We want, I think those are the things we have to lay out and just say, that's the minimum level that we want for that.
But they also shouldn't be charging people with empty land.
When he was here,
That's what they're gonna do.
that you were only going to be able to get the things that they had already laid out. Because they're
But they
already
never
working
told
on the
us what those are.
contracts.
Yeah, but they've never told us what those are.
They never, exactly. And he said, we get that to us and we haven't seen it.
Because the problem is we got probably, because he said by late October this was
Well,
gonna
this is engineered for us not to be
I
able
agree.
to put in our 2 cents worth.
Which is why,
Something in it.
which is why I think we just submit what we want, and then they come back and say, we can't do any of those things, but here's what we do. To me, it forces them to come back with a
To
list of
be,
things
to
that
be
they.
fair, I think we should say, you told us you were gonna give us this list, and you haven't, so we still want it, and by the way, you better have these things on it.
Sure, well, that's what I'm saying, I just want to present something so that if we come with that, who knows, maybe they say, no, that's reasonable, and that's what we'll go with. I think on one hand, I don't know that they care. Yeah, I don't know that they care, on one hand, because I think that the bottom line is they're just gonna put out the bid. So whatever we're gonna ask for, they're gonna put out the bid, and then whoever's gonna do it is gonna think, and if
But
we.
you know what? Supervisor Barber will know what we want,
Yes.
and she will listen. I know, I'm serious, it's,
Okay, then.
hey, will she know what we want? Well,
You
tell her.
have to tell us.
No, we-
I put my
Chuck, you
mind
know-
on it all the time, but it doesn't work so.
Chuck, we always
Sometimes it's a little
tell her.
fuzzy.
There's not a problem with us telling her.
You
but-
told her a lot of stuff.
Because, I'm not convinced that she always
You don't know the half of it.
knows what's going on within departmental, behind departmental doors. In fact, I'm to my toes, I'm certain she has no idea in a number of issues. And I believe, and Chuck, you can tell me I'm
No, no.
being arrogant,
Certainly, I don't know.
but
that-
I believe that there's a lot of things that we have let her know about that she is grateful for.
Yes, that's, come up with a
I'm just
list
gonna
of
say, if we
ideas.
have a franchise, they need to pick up any piece of trash on the side of the road within a certain amount of time. I don't care, if we're gonna pay through the nose and be required to have all this, I want everything on the side of the road picked up by this company, regardless of what day it is, who it belongs to. If it's pushed off, right?
I agree, it sounds like a
this is gonna be forced upon us,
Yep.
then, because I don't see what you talked about,
But
fixing
you're
the
in the
problems
city,
we
the
have.
city doesn't do that. The city doesn't pick up, because they're just basing it off, they're making it just like when we lived in this, I don't know, I lived in the city, in the San Bernardino Valley. They didn't pick up everything. They would pick up certain things on certain days, and we paid it through our taxes, but they would go down the street.
Is that what that?
Wasn't he gonna come back?
I was gonna.
No?
Because if they want to be the contracted trash company, they will do what they
That's why I'm
need
saying,
to do.
I don't think that there's
If
a,
we don't do
I think we
anything,
have
they'll
some-
just continue normal service. But
And
I know when we did cities like Arcadia or whatever it was, like we had to bend over backwards for them. We had to have certain trucks and certain bins and certain whatever. I mean, it's a little different out there, sure. Those are things that we had to go through to have.
I'm pretty sure that
contracted
they will only give us a suggested list. I think whatever we ask for, unless it's the levitating trash can that Tom wants, I think they will.
That's the title of my article.
Just put it on there, just mess their mind.
That's the subject for the email, get their attention, levitating trash can.
Levitating trash cans. Levitating trash cans.
But it's
Dragging one of the trash carts across a gravel
Yeah,
driveway.
Yeah, it's terrible.
But
That's why it makes it easy.
I also believe that, and one of the things that really bothered me about that meeting in August was a lot of the talking was done by Waste Management. She was
No, I
not
know.
invited here for that purpose.
Correct.
And I was very unhappy with how that
Yeah,
all shook
yeah,
out.
yeah.
So any communication we have with them,
Yeah.
I believe should just be with the county.
Yes. Oh, I agree
And I was
100%.
very upset at the ARTC meeting, because I said, why? Because we had Waste Management telling residents
How
to
things
tell
work,
the
yeah.
to tell the acting town council what should be in the franchise, because we can make it happen.
Yeah.
And like, I was, you know, and so I stepped in, I said, you're a bidder. There's supposed to be a solid wall between what we want,
constituents,
and
yeah.
we tell the county what to put into it, and then they put together the scope of work,
And they
and
put it
the
out,
sound,
and everybody
and then you bid, yeah, I'm like, you have no beeswax being here.
So,
She was rude.
the motion I have is to write a letter to Public Works, CC Barger, detailing a list of wants for the upcoming franchise trash service, while also requesting a list of possible services, a services menu perhaps, that was previously promised,
And the levitating.
I'll second that motion.
and levitating trash. Second, right?
Or somebody to take it down there for us.
Any other discussion? All right, all in favor? Opposed? Okay. The next thing, SC moving forward.
I'd actually like to table this to next week. We have a lot of other big things going on.
That's fine, as long as you know we're imminent.
No, well,
I just mean like anything's gonna happen between now and the 18th. If not, the 18th is pretty open, so we have plenty of time to get that.
there have been PSPSs going on, and we are not receiving those.
Yeah.
We've been taken off the list. I emailed Mr. Ford,
I saw that.
and he has not responded.
And,
So,
and there's been a marked change in the types of notifications we receive, or not being
we
received.
haven't received it. Oh,
No,
So,
I just got
she received
this
a hand
today.
delivered notice.
This was hand delivered to my house today, Jackie. And it's saying tomorrow at 4 o'clock, and they'll be off all night until 3 a.m. This is the first time I've ever gotten anything like this. It's always been a text
and when did you
message.
get this?
Today at home at 4.
So, you know, when I go home, I have a garage door that I drive into when I park
Yeah,
my
so
car.
you
If
would
it's
say
on your
this, yeah.
handle,
Yeah.
you know, nobody goes to the front door, most people.
Yeah.
I know,
Well,
but it doesn't
yeah, it
matter.
doesn't
The
matter.
guy walked up to me, I saw him, I was sitting in my office, so I saw him.
And we're not the only area that's getting crazy stuff with this, so I'll give you a real life example. My mother-in-law is essentially bedridden on oxygen machine
Oh, my.
Yeah.
in Lancaster, and they were doing pull upgrades and stuff because of, PSPC.
They were doing what?
They were doing pull upgrades,
Oh.
and so we said, hey, she has no way around her oxygen machine, and they basically said, oh, there's nothing we can do.
Oh, that,
And she's medical baseline as
Oh.
well, so I mean, there's,
no, they're required by law.
Yes.
So did you,
Right.
okay, that's,
so it's a separate thing. My point is just, there seems to be a mad dash to get this stuff done, and all the rules
Yeah.
that they had previously been playing by with notifications a week, 2 weeks out. And then you know, like, hey, we're gonna do some pole upgrades, we're gonna replace lines and cover conductor, all this, have seemed to have gone out the window as they try to meet whatever arbitrary deadline they told the
Well,
PUC.
and all my.
We'll have everything done by date X. Now, of note, my understanding, if I'm, correct me if my memory is wrong, because it absolutely could be,
October 1.
yes. And so what date is this?
October
October 5th, yeah, or October 4th, whatever. So I'm curious as to, did they blow the arbitrary made-up deadline? And if so, this is, I would expect more.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't
I
know.
can't even.
And I don't even know what I don't even know what the thing would be to complain about, because I don't think there was any teeth to it. It was just like they just promised or said out loud, hey, by October 1, we're gonna have this all done. I mean, yeah, so.
And all the poles in my neighborhood have been changed, and they were changed months ago.
Yeah. Well, and there's been some weird stuff where I've heard people, several residents, I think last time mentioned that they turned off power for another area, didn't realize that their pole was on it, and were like, oh, sorry, well, we're upgrading this, that's why you didn't get notified, we didn't know that it was here, but we're already started, so tough.
Well, this is a 24-hour notice, and that's not what they've done before.
Yeah, correct, yeah. I mean, I will say, all things considered, at least so far in 2021, for all the pole upgrades we had, and you can remember in the same neighborhood, and we got plenty of notice. I mean, it still sucks to not have power.
Yeah, they were off on a little bit of.
Sure, on times, but at least the day was real. And at least say like, then I can make arrangements to not
And
be
it'd
home.
be 2 weeks in advance, at least for
Yes.
my area it was.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask, 'cause the one thing I wanted to talk about was what to do about
Yes,
the
yes.
GEO 95
Yeah.
violations, but this is a different issue,
Sure.
which is just as important.
Yes.
So let me ask the question, what would you guys like to do about this and the other?
I think, let's document, because I don't know, I'm looking at it.
Well, I don't want to document something unless it's gonna go.
Well, I do,
have so
no,
much stuff to
I
do.
get that. What I'm saying is I think we need to see how far this goes. Is this like, because they set too ambitious a deadline, October 1st, like, okay, they wrapped it up, and now, by the time we get to our next meeting, we'll have had, I mean, that's well past that October 1st deadline. They're still notifying, shutting people down. I think that's the point where we say, we know it was October 1st, we are now in the middle of October, and we haven't heard back from Mr. Ford on the ESPS and everything else. So there's definitely some stuff here, I think, that's, I don't think we can definitively answer. Because again, I also don't know that they, other than them saying to the press, by October 1st, we're not, we hope to have all this work done, blah, blah, blah. I don't know that means anything. I mean, that's like me saying, like, hey, I hope to win the lotto on Wednesday night.
Well, I mean, they do, I do know that they had a lot of pressure put on them because of PSPS.
Yes, and I know that they look at like October is like, well, Santa Ana start kicking in, and they have to get it done for. So I'm torn because on one hand I'm like, well, they're doing upgrades that hopefully will prevent it.
Move up,
But it's almost like,
education.
it's a real cynical way to look
Medicine's
at
almost
it.
worse for the.
Well, or it's the same thing, like, right, we're getting all of our PSPS in advance. Like, we get them scheduled now instead of when God's scheduled.
Well, I'm more than happy to reach out to Mr. Ford with whatever it is that you.
I think if we reach out, if we don't hear from him, I'd say in the next several days, I think reaching out and also notifying him that people are not receiving notices as they had been accustomed to at a week to 2 weeks before an outage, and if there's any particular reason that that's changed. I think that's a good question.
Hey, before Carla leaves,
Carlo,
Oh!
could we just do a little quick education committee update?
Yeah, we can do that. We can move that.
Jump forward to that.
Sure. Is that?
Thank you.
Yeah, well, you're gonna have to.
Yeah, I will.
You almost got it.
I almost got it.
So go ahead, Tom.
All right. So I don't know if Jackie and Carla know that we voted to have an education committee attached to the town council, and we were here for that. So that was, what, 3 meetings ago? Maybe 4 meetings ago. And the whole point of this was to just bring some visibility, get it out to the community, kind of what was happening in our local school district, what opportunities are out there from outside our district, industry and government, that kind of thing. So we've had 2 meetings, and the first meeting was kind of just get together, everybody kind of, well, not really a gripe session, but just, what was bothering people and what we thought we needed to work on, and just kind of to get it out. And then the second meeting we had, we wanted to talk about a mission statement. So some of the people who attended the meeting, I'll give you a list right now who was there. My wife Tracy was there, Marvin Claus, Don Schneider, Pam Walter, Joanne Whalen, and Sandy Madsen were at that particular meeting. So we asked everybody to consider this would be the core membership, is to just give us ideas on mission statement, and all that came in. So we're going to put that mission statement together for the next meeting, and the next time we report, we'll have that for you. We also kind of talked about bylaws, how are we going to operate, and this is where the town council is important. We basically said, well, we'll just operate in the town council bylaws. If there's anything unique to this committee, we'll propose that we amend the bylaws from the town council. So that's where we are on that. And the other thing we kind of looked at was social media. So we're going to assign some job positions to some people, recruiting more people, social media. We got Tracy with the newspaper. And the reason that I should say, Carlo, is we also want to interface, because I know that Mr. Lackey is big on education, and obviously, so as a community kind of say, hey, here's what we want to see, here's what we want to do, we may be calling on Mr. Lackey to help us with certain things. Because right now, a lot of the members and a lot of the community kind of feel like our district isn't taking advantage of a lot of things that are available. They've kind of got themselves in a little bubble, and that's kind of why this committee is formed. So I just wanted you to know, and also for,
So is this like a subcommittee of the town council?
It is a subcommittee of the town council.
It's a committee of the town council.
Yeah, it is a committee of the town council. So just want to make sure you're aware that this is what we're working on, and we may or may not ask for a liaison from maybe one of your offices at some point. If there are opportunities that you know about for education, college opportunities, grants, anything that comes out of the federal side, or anything that comes out of the state side, or the county for that matter, Chuck, we'd like you to be able to bring that to us as well.
Well then, let me just reiterate, the state grant funding for outdoor programs to connect people, and in particular kids, to natural areas. I know that the school district used to take the 5th graders out for a week of science camp in the Malibu Mountains. And that was expensive. They have state funding for projects that you cannot buy any infrastructure with it, but all travel vouchers, bus to and from, meals, everything can be paid for with this grant. So maybe if they're planning on doing that for the kids, and it's a multi-year grant program, that will save the school district some money. They can still do those programs. So I would ask you to please, I'm sure Don Schneider will be all over it, because she's very invested in those sort of things. So if you could, it was a town council email, it was a notice that came to town council. I will forward it to your direct email, and you can push it on, but please look at that. That is the state grant funding program.
And that's what we're trying to do. This community has a lot of students that aren't in the school district, which hurts the ability of the school district to operate. And what we want to try to do is bring awareness to what we can do and maybe improve upon things or force some improvement. And that right there is a very good example, because those programs are important and they're exciting, and they make people want to be part of the district.
Yes.
I mean, we want the people in Acton to want to be part of the school district, so our code could be healthy. And that's what we're about. So the next meeting is
Next Wednesday.
next Wednesday. We're going to start meeting at the library and start working up. So
What time?
I think the library doesn't open till 11, so
no. Okay.
So is it this Wednesday?
next Wednesday, the
October 13th?
13th.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yes.
What time?
11 a.m.
11 a.m.
11, yeah.
The congressman actually last school year just nominated an Acton remarkable young man to the
West Point.
West Point.
Yeah, no, I know.
I know he was actually selected for 2. I know my brain was. But he has another academy night coming up, so I'll make sure you get information for that.
Okay.
But, I'm not sure how it gets dispersed. I think we send it to the schools, but I'll let the town council know as well. that'll be coming up. It's just a matter of applying and kind of learning what the process is, and then the selection, I think, is in the spring. So coming in, this would be the time that if anyone's interested, they can kind of start the process.
And your academy night is when?
You know what, they just had it on the 7th, so let me email you the next one. Yeah.
Oh, okay, so not this September?
No, they have it on September 7th.
Oh,
So let me email you. We just talked about it on the staff meeting this morning, but I didn't write the date down, so I'll get that to you.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Okay.
And Councilman Garcia made a great selection.
He
Kept her race. So-
I actually met him when we were doing the park meetings, and he
Who
came.
was it, John?
Kim Fairbanks?
Kim Fairbanks.
Okay.
And what an extraordinary young man. So I wasn't on the committee, I had nothing to do other than make the connection for him, but I kept cheering him from afar and I let the staff know this. I felt like he was my guy. So all the other ones, really impressive. But he did get accepted to 2 academies.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So that in itself is pretty extraordinary. That doesn't happen
He
often.
just texted my son a couple of weeks ago, it's like, oh man, they are working me hard.
Yes.
Good for him.
Yes. And it's absolutely, West Point is so beautiful. It's absolutely.
Especially this time of year.
Oh my gosh, and where it's located, it's magical. It really is. It's just something else. So anyway, on that note too is, if you might let me know, I scheduled the Congressman's District Day. So even if it's a matter of coming in, I know I've scheduled him an event for the law and civics classes in one of the Palmdale schools. If they have that here in Acton School, we can schedule that to come in the classroom.
Yeah, that's something, I mean, we're going to
Yeah.
work through the parent organizations as well as.
Congressman Knight used to do that, and it was really cool, but I don't know. You know.
Yeah, Assemblyman Lackey's doing that up in Palm and Lancaster.
Okay, so we want to get that here too as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, just let us know. And there's multifacets to this. He worked, obviously was nominated by Congressman McKean to the Naval Academy, so he kind of homegrown. But 2 is, in addition to flying 30 missions over Iraqi freedom, he also worked in aerospace, so he can do science, technology. But there's a businessman component too, because he did real estate. So there's a lot of facets. If there's, a certain niche that he wants to address, just let me know and we'll make it happen.
Okay, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
And we're going to put up, we also talked about a Facebook page that we're going to put up as well. That'll be attached to our town council. Same kind of deal, you can comment on, you can't, we'll post information on that, but you won't be able to comment on it. So it won't get dragged out, next door style.
Oh, come on.
Kind of thing. All right, so that's it for that, and I think it's good things coming.
Awesome.
All right, thank you, Brian.
All right.
Disaster recovery ordinance.
Well, I moved the DOE
Sorry.
RFI.
Oh, okay.
So we can.
Oh, that's great. So it came in before we could get it on the agenda for the last meeting, but the Department of Energy issued a request for information to anybody in the world, asking for information on utility scale solar plants, facilities. And they wanted specific questions answered. They asked specific questions. And they were only focusing on things like impacts to wildlife. So they weren't addressing impacts to like two-legged, non-wild, but some people are wild, but anyway. The concern, the request for information started, the very first line started out that to achieve the 100% renewable goals of the Biden administration, we're going to need to expand utility scale solar, and that will require up to 5.7 million acres converted to utility scale solar, which is less than a percent of the contiguous land in the United States.
Oh, that's all.
And
A fair amount in the Mojave Desert, below the Mason-Dixon
don't even
line,
get me started.
and to the west.
So they were citing something called the Solar Studies Report that was commissioned by the Department of Energy, and that's where they got this 5.7 million acres. I read the report, and what the report actually says is to achieve our goals by 2035 and 2050, we will need to have, I think it was like almost 1 terawatt of renewable solar by 2035, and like up to 1.5 terawatts by 2050.
So we're struck solar panels to people now.
But it said categorically that it does not matter if it's created with remote utility scale solar or distributed generation, okay? Which is a powerful statement. And then it went on, you had to find it there was on page 95 and page 122, but it also said categorically that they have data, DOE has data, EPRI has, not EPRI, SERI, it's now called NREL, the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. It's in Golden, Colorado. It used to be known as Solar Energy Research Institute when I used to work with them. But it says that their study shows that distributed solar can generate up to 1.1 terawatts, which means that almost all of the solar needed to achieve President Biden's green energy goals can be provided with distributed generation. So they don't need any utility. So they don't even need to destroy 1 million acres, let alone 5.7 million. And it's huge, but you have to really find it in these reports. And so I was thunderstruck with this RFI that it came out saying, we need this much solar, and it has to be utility scale. So help us, basically tell us about the impact so we can get there in the least impactful way. So the message really needs to be, as we all know, remote utility scale solar is highly damaging to the environment, to people, requires huge transmission lines. All of them are going to benefit all of them are going, because they're from they're either utilities companies, they're a consortium of utilities companies, they're cybersecurity, every single person is going to make a lot of money with infrastructure bill, except for one person who happens to be a member of Public Utilities Commission for the state of North Carolina. So, and there are none of them are from actual communities that are affected. None of them are from California, except for the head guy chief engineer from San Diego Gas and Electric, which is so hard over on utility scale that there's no hope.
Based on what you described, they have a single point of failure for all theirs. They're cool with that.
Well, and it's also, I don't think they look at it that way.
No, I know they don't. That's the problem, though, right? No one looks at it that way until it happens, right? And I mean, we haven't had, knock on wood, somewhere, haven't had a good shakeout where something goes wrong in the quarter. Well, yeah, or any of these numbers things. I mean, I'm trying to go with the natural occurrence just happens, and then, I think back, and I wish I could remember the article. One of the major news, maybe Newsweek or one of the major news publications did a story on when they were out and that power went down for that amount of time. They said there were within hours of probably a complete breakdown of society. Because people, you had no communication, you had nothing, and I was like, when we go through a fall here?
Oh, yeah.
Let me tell you about it.
Imagine that
millions,
there
but with millions,
48 hours.
Or longer. I'm talking about catastrophic. Whereas if we've talked ad nauseum, every time we get anybody in energy, think about being able to have local generation, storage, and things, so that you're self-sustained and not.
And so if we get hacked, nobody else is affected.
My house is down and you guys all laugh,
Well,
I'm not.
So Jackie, if I may ask, I'm sorry to interrupt. With what you found, is there any action our office can do? Well, first let me get an idea. I was kind of under the assumption you were wanting to be part of such a committee.
If there's yes, or somebody from a community who's not going to make money on the infrastructure bill.
So with that, would the council want us to pursue seeing if there's means to get you on such a committee?
We would absolutely do that. Yeah. And I know that there's not paid. It's not for pay.
On your own dime, but what I'll do is ask Jacob to follow up to find out, to see what we can do. As he noted in the email, he's going to have to take a deeper dive into looking into it.
We would be grateful for that. If you want, I can send you. I took the list that he sent, or actually he sent me a link and I pulled the list out. What each of these people are. So for example, strategic planning and policy advisor for American Transmission Company. That's a multi-state transmission-only utility, Wisconsin, Michigan, Illinois. And the problem is that in California, I don't know how other states are, but the only way utilities, private utilities, Edison, PG&E, SDG&E, make money is by transmitting. They don't have too much generation. So it's every amp, or megawatt that travels through our town. Yes. And it's in their interest to have more and more and more transmission.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, after you peruse the list, that the majority of people on this list, they are going to be able,
They will have direct
they're going
profit.
to benefit
Yeah.
financially from being on this committee.
I believe so because they are either utility advisors, utility companies, transmission companies, cybersecurity companies, entities that will do well if remote utility scale generation.
If 5 million acres of solar happens,
If Acton and Antelope Valley supply electricity.
become a giant glass wall.
Yes. Now, that's not written anywhere, but you just have to look at what they do, and you will see that
They have a vested interest
there
in
is nobody on this list who's from just a community or land use or a.
But your credentials would qualify you.
Yes.
Yes, so
I believe so.
with your background, I recall that. My ask of you would be to send me an email in reply to Jacob's and just state what you've observed and what you concluded from what you saw from the list. And then I'll follow up asking you if you could do a deeper dive to find out what.
Okay, I'd be happy to do that. As long as you guys, see, we didn't have this on the agenda last time because it came in too late, so.
No, it's important because I think it's a recurring theme, not just at the federal level, but at the county, the chief sustainability officer, and the sustainability plan. We've talked about that. There's a strange dichotomy in we don't want to create heat islands here. We're going to create a heat island there at a massive scale. It's so far beyond what they're concerned about in other areas. It seems completely counterproductive.
Right.
Like whatever positivity is offset by not having fossil fuel generation seems completely offset by the fact that it's going to just straight up raise the temperature. Like there's no like 4 steps to get there.
Unless it's done diffusely.
Correct.
Or,
No, that's my point. Is that it's like if I bring an ice cube into this room, it's not going to cool the room. But if I brought in a whole truckload of ice cube, it would cool.
Yep.
Same thing here is like putting that all over the place
Yep.
in areas that are already covered.
Also, the distance of transmission is wasteful.
Yeah.
Okay, it's
You lose energy.
it's inefficient.
Yeah.
There's a lot of losses, even at 500 kilovolts. There are a lot of losses. There is heat generated all along the way. Every loss is heat into the environment. So every transformer, every aluminum wire,
Fire risk.
all
But
that.
just, I did write this up in the letter. This came up in the tri-tip hearing because I was up at, it was the Public Utilities Commission hearing went on for weeks for the Edison project. I was up there testimony and cross-examining. And one of the items that we brought to, as evidence was right down here, just south of the substation, I think it was Deputy Short who noticed that the 500 kV lines was wiggling, right? It was like, "God, that's weird." So he went over to investigate. Somebody had unbolted all the stanchions from the concrete, just lined the bolts up neatly, and the whole thing was completely unbolted. And there, the lines are so close together that if one had fallen, the only reason it didn't fall was because they were under tension and the other two on the other end
Holding it
pulled
in
it up.
place,
And there was probably not a lot of wind.
And-
And there was a sheriff's report on that. That's not fabricated.
And for PSP not to include transmission lines is ridiculous.
Because the tarps that would take out the distribution lines won't take out the transmission lines. Is that the deal?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a case right
That's
there.
why they don't. They're like, oh, our transmission lines are, no.
But this model of transmission, I mean, we all know this, is outdated.
Oh, yeah.
Distributed electricity is the future. It gets rid of dependencies between states, dependency between counties.
It's
makes
reliable,
people reliable.
it's resilient,
Yeah.
it's efficient. You use the power, you make the power where it's used. And
This whole thing is designed to keep us dependent on
the
utilities.
problem is when you say that, You were accused of being a shill for the petroleum industry.
I
Susan
thought
Susan Zonter,
Yeah.
Susan Zonter was accused of being a shill, and she just, all she said was like,
Hey, why we need propane?
you gotta stop doing
Why we need propane? Oh, you must want
It's
propane.
obvious to anybody who looks at it that electricity and renewable energy is the future, okay, and it will get here.
If done intelligently.
And done intelligently, but this is just idiotic to continue on in this manner.
I was, 5.6 million acres, that's not a little, that's a lot.
Which state is it like, that's gotta be like. Rhode
It
Island.
just says,
No, I mean like area-wise, it's
I
gotta be
didn't
like,
look at that.
yeah,
I mean, and consider those areas, Rhode Island, anything north,
they're not gonna be.
will generate zero solar.
No, they don't even be part of it, that's why
But it'll be
it's,
going.
yes.
And you know what, maybe that's fair, but what we don't want is to have it
you
supply the sun-rich areas as well as.
Yeah, no, it's.
Yeah, so we would be grateful. I know it's never gonna happen, I get that, but we gotta try, we gotta do something.
And just let me know, I mean, I know, I spoke to you and I have been corresponding.
Hearing for the planning commission on October 27th. We submitted a comment letter on it, if you remember, like a month ago. And we heard back from, I'm blanking on who it was, not Caroline, the person from regional planning. And they indicated, and maybe it was Adrian indicated that, okay, so one of the things we objected to was this thing called disaster map, that somebody at regional planning could just decide that an area is too dangerous to be developed and then just take it off of.
Yeah.
You can't do
Ratio for the
anything with
map.
that land. And there was never, there were no criteria, no nothing. So we objected to that. So they took a picture, well, the email came back that they took that out. And they cleaned up some of the, confusion over housing, and, how long it would take and things like that. I have not looked at the ordinance yet. But there was a long discussion at the Atc meeting on this, because there were people who were calling in from Juniper Hills who know of people, and I guess one gal actually has lost her house. I had heard a story actually on the radio, a woman being interviewed who she couldn't get, she lost her house in the Bobcat Fire, she's from the Antelope Valley, and she couldn't get, the fire department was imposing all these new road requirements on her, it was the same road, health department was doing all these well-watered things. And so I pointed out at the Atc meeting, it was just last week, that it seems to me that this disaster ordinance is being put together because it's supposed to help people who've been affected by disasters rebuild. But since it's a regional planning ordinance, it's not touching on any of the issues that are making it impossible for the people in at Juniper Hills to rebuild, and elsewhere. I'm sure it's true where the Woolsey and the Thomas Fire and everything else. And the purpose of this disaster recovery ordinance is to basically, what the county's done is for all these fires, they've passed an emergency ordinance. Okay, if you've been affected by this, you can stay on your property and rebuild and blah, blah, blah. They want to have one ordinance that so they don't have to keep writing it onesie twosie ordinances for every fire that comes along. So, but the problem is that it doesn't seem like this ordinance is going to really address the real impediments that people are finding to rebuild. So we never made that comment because I wasn't aware of it, and we were never aware of it. It was never brought to our attention. This issue only came up at the Atc meeting on Wednesday. So one of the things they discussed, and I wanted to fly it by you guys, is that maybe we should ask regional planning to look at this before they approve this ordinance, look at it, contact people at Juniper Valley that have been affected and say, how will this address your problems?
Will it?
And, well, I mean, let's be optimistic. How will this address your problems? And if it doesn't, then they need to go back to the drawing board and come up with an ordinance that is, once again, because I think it's once again a situation where public works is doing this, regional plan is doing this, fire department is doing this, health department is doing this, and this one person has to ping pong back and forth between all these people. So, but that is not what our original letter said, and that's not what we discussed. This is the first time it's come up.
So what is the purpose, on the ordinance, what do they claim is the purpose of this ordinance?
It's to make it, my understanding is to facilitate people to rebuild after a fire.
Because it seems like it reads more like, let's prevent people from getting themselves in the positions that would require rebuilding after.
No, that's a different ordinance, we haven't seen that. That's the safety element, which is a different issue, is that right?
No, it's not.
Okay, we'll talk,
Oh,
oh, yeah,
yes.
yeah, we'll talk, that's separate. Okay, that's another humdinger that happened today.
Yeah, that was a.
So the disaster recovery ordinance is just this ordinance, the idea of which is to, you know, it says you can live on your property in an RV, which normally you're not allowed to. You can only have to have a single wide. While you rebuild, as long as your footprint isn't bigger.
Yeah, there's some, there's criteria.
But we did ask this, like, how does this address the issue of health department? Is health department going to make you retest? We asked the question, retest your well. It's fair for water quality because of water quality. But are you going to make the property owner show 2 gallons a minute for 24 hours or 48, whatever it is?
Yep.
And we didn't hear back on that because this is not an ordinance that addresses health. So really, it isn't clear to me that it's an ordinance that addresses rebuilding in the aftermath of a fire.
And we had that happen in the fire that took out some of the houses on Aliso,
A station fire, yep.
where Sam Houston could not rebuild his house because his gallons per minute were not.
And we were told that was not
Slightly
going to happen.
Exactly, we were promised.
That was a lie. That was
2
a
years
lie.
he spent, my husband worked with him trying to get his permits, and it was not possible. His house burned to the ground.
That was that the Crown Fire or the station fire?
Station fire.
2009. So I feel kind of badly springing this on regional planning as a new idea, but it's only just come up. But I would recommend, I do have a motion in that. I will. Oppose the ordinance until DRP has conducted an accurate and comprehensive evaluation of how much will really help victims of fire recovery. Sort of trying to be succinct. And we write a letter to that effect, obviously, so.
Yeah, so.
Do you guys have any other ideas?
No, I think it's, I mean, for the discussion, I think it sounds as good as any.
If you're going to have an ordinance that helps people rebuild a disaster.
Talking to people who've been through the disaster. Probably.
And it should not be moving goalposts.
Right, and spending
Well,
2 years to get a
Should
permit.
be-
There should be 50 different goalposts. Okay, you kick it through regional planning, now you gotta deal with public works.
You gotta keep scoring, you gotta keep scoring.
Yeah.
It should be about, like Troy said, it should be streamlined.
Streamlining, comprehensive.
You know what?
Streamlining.
You know what's something they might want to talk to, because I do know that there was some, because in the Buckwheat fire, when I lived in Canyon Country, we burned the whole neighborhood down except for our house, which was, it's an interesting story. But the city did work to streamline, and everybody I know from the 4 or 5 immediate neighbors that had to go through the process, they pushed us through. I mean, they were building within 6 to 9 months. I mean, yeah, like I'm talking like structure going up, was not very up. I'd say within 12 to 16 months they were back in. Like,
Well, that's because the city council told
yes,
the
dude,
departments
that's right, yeah.
together.
So my only, so it can be done, is what I'm getting at, is that there can be a streamline process, and that seemed to work really well, because there were lots of houses within the city limits of Santa Clara that did burn down during that fire, and I don't know any that you would have driven by in 2 years and not, I mean, obviously, my neighbor was an older neighborhood, so obviously they stuck out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
All these new houses, you were like, what happened here? But other than that, they did work and streamline, and it was successful. So, I mean, it's not an impossible task, but that would be my hope from this, would be that kind of outcome where we say,
Right.
hey, we're gonna, they have those one-stop shops for some of that stuff, we see they come through an anagram and say, oh, it's a one-stop shop to do this thing.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be great to do that if somebody was?
2 houses burned down on Bear Trap,
Yeah, and never.
and neither one of them
Never
could
got
rebuild.
Yeah.
Well, you know, Tom,
I didn't realize it because it couldn't be well standards.
Oh, yeah, Sam's was well, and I don't remember what Dr. Clark's was.
And the issue's not water quality. It was just water
Quantity,
quality.
it's water quantity. not
Which is not a real standard anyway.
And it was
It's
real
fake.
close to the amount that he needed, but they wouldn't budge.
And the Board of
So
Supervisors
one
has
had to
never,
drill a new well.
the Board of Supervisors has never approved that policy.
I know.
So,
It was a nightmare.
Okay, all right, so we're
Yeah.
gonna take the vote,
Okay.
we need a second. Any other discussion?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Opposed? All right, motion's carried.
Okay, so, safety plan, all right, which is on,
Oh, we had the water plant, we can see.
no, safety plans after, they're together.
Different.
So they're two different things, but they're, oh, no, wait, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was
I'm
saying,
screwed up, yes, sorry, you're right.
No, it's okay.
Water plan,
Yeah.
water plan.
Water plant.
I'm sorry, I'm
You're okay.
tired.
Yeah, but you're only 7 minutes behind. So.
I'm trying to get this thing.
I'm sorry. The county has been working on the water plan for a while, and they recently reached out to Irwin's, if you guys know what they are, the regional water management areas, integrated regional water management program. So there's a Santa Clara Irwin, there's a Antelope Valley Irwin, might be called something different, but it's in the Antelope Valley, because we're in two different watersheds. So for this water plan, so far, Public Works has reached out to the Irwins, which are the entities, and environmental justice organizations to put a draft together. As far as I can tell, they've not reached out to any rural communities. Okay. However, I emailed it when we learned about this on a Thursday, a week and a half ago. I emailed the lead engineer and I asked him explicitly, his name is Coons, to reach out to rural communities, because we're all going to be affected by this water plan. I gave him also ARTC's contact information, Association of Rural Town Council's contact information, and I did ask him to contact Supervisor Barger's office for more rural contacts, because every unincorporated community will be affected by this. That was almost 2 weeks ago, and I've never heard back from him, and he's never responded to any emails, which is a little bit troubling. So I also participated in the Santa Clara River Irwin meeting when the water plan was discussed. They conducted a survey, which, said they had some questions, but it didn't address our issue of particular concern here with the possibility of transferring water from our basin to other basins and therefore drawing wells up even more. We do know that Public Works has clarified that they're interested in extracting another 1,000 acre-feet of water per year from our river. Just so you know what that translates to, that's enough water to supply 9,000 people with 100 gallons a day for a year. So it's actually more than, probably, the park gets a lot of water. So if it's just residential uses, it's 9,000 people. So it's a huge amount of water, 1,000 acres.
More than our whole community.
Yeah.
Well, okay, but District 37 gives water to the park, and that's a huge amount.
Yeah, but I mean.
As a school.
Yeah, well, but I think he makes a good point.
For residents, yeah, it's more people than live in Acton.
Yes.
Right, exactly.
So 9,000 people and how many gallons share?
100 gallons a day.
Oh my God.
1 acre foot is 325,851 gallons. So 1,000 acre feet is 1,000 times what we know. So on this issue, I would like to move, and I have it down, that we contact Mr. Coons by email and ask that he coordinate with the ATC directly on the water plan. I've given him all the contact information for everybody I can think of, but we need to contact him again.
You know what I'm saying?
The draft water plan is supposed to be out in spring, so it's rolling hard.
They're all moving.
Everything's rolling out hard.
Yeah, I'll second that, Jeff.
You have a second? All right, any other discussion? Thank you.
Sure.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, now we're under a friend of mine, vulnerability assessment and safety plan, or safety element, as it were.
I need the secretary. Okay, so.
You have one at the table.
Sorry. The next thing is the climate vulnerability assessment and the safety element update. Safety element is a portion of the general plan, LA County general plan. It is being revised to address climate change adaptability and resiliency. So, I have just to save time, I've written it up here too. Since the summer, we have been waiting for the draft climate vulnerability assessment to be released. That is something that is being prepared by the Chief Sustainability Officer. And there were workshops. We had representatives from rural communities participate in the workshops. But the The report itself hasn't come out yet. And according to the, this is the schedule. This is the scheduled timeline for updating the safety element. And it says, you know, there's supposed to be the intro to the safety element, there was supposed to be climate vulnerability assessment, a draft released in a comment period, and then there was going to be climate adaptation workshops, then the safety element update draft was going to be released. So I have been this came from the presentation that was given to everybody in March. And so we've been waiting on, you know, with bated breath for this climate vulnerability assessment to come out so that we could comment on it. Because the problem is the climate vulnerability assessment is countywide. But the safety element only addresses unincorporated areas, most of which are the north half, right? And are not cities. So the two concerns. We want to make sure that the climate vulnerability assessment properly captures issues in our community, which are not the same as what's going down in Willowbrook or, you know, Baldwin Hills or something. Not that there's bad things happening there or not here, they're just very different. So if it's countywide, it needs to still represent the different areas of the county that have different paradigms.
Yeah, not one size fits all.
A. B, and more importantly, this climate vulnerability assessment, the results are going to form the foundation of the safety element itself. So the safety element is something that talks about, oh, here are all the safety concerns in our community, here's the policies and the land use, policies and goals that we're going to adopt for addressing and minimizing those hazards, okay? So what I've been looking for months now is a climate vulnerability assessment that is quantitative. Because if you haven't quantified your vulnerability to climate change and other hazards, then you have no way to know if your goals and policies are going to mitigate or address the goals, address the hazards. So your vulnerability assessment has to be comprehensive and quantitative. And only then can you have a valid foundation for your safety element of the general plan. And then, only then can you establish mitigation measures that are commensurate with the climate hazards you're trying to address. So, we've been waiting for a long time to make that public comment. And if it was quantitative and it captured our community, then we'd be like, yeah, attaboy, right? But since we haven't seen it yet, we have no idea. So what happened today, so this is what we were told in March, and this is also what the Planning Commission was told on September 1. So this is not, this is still current, right? So we've been bird dogging it, and we were told today by the Chief Sustainability Office that the CBA will be released next week, but they will not accept public comments on it. So that was sort of surprising. The CBA is looking at increased heat projection, increased fire projection, increased drought projection, and increased flooding. The key issue of concern is whether the CBA...
Drought and flooding.
Yes.
That's amazing. I'm sorry. I know that they would say there'd be regional, like localized, whatever, but this is amazing.
I am not...
We're going to cook, we're going to drown, and we're going to freeze all at the same time. It's like a infomercial. This is like, I want to know where I can order one of these.
Can I use that for my article? That's my title.
What?
That's my title.
Okay, I'm really trying to
I'm sorry.
be even keel on this. This is something that the county is committed to, so we have to accommodate it.
Yes. Or figure out a way to help make sense.
Okay, so they're looking at all those things. I won't read them again, because you'll start. So the key issue for me anyway is whether the CBA has properly quantified these increases to ensure that the safety element provides commensurate policies. The only way to ensure that the new safety element policies are appropriate is to evaluate them through the lens of the hazard increases that they are going to address. If the increased hazards are not quantified, then regional planning cannot discern whether the safety element policies are reasonable or too anemic or just plain overkill. That's why the CBA is so important. So, I would like, that's the deal. If anybody has any questions, or I have a motion.
I think we rolled the motion, because I think I know where we're going with it, and we have to, it's really bad. It's like, it's one of those things where I kind of go, either people understand what's going on and they're like purposely doing this to just be able to like thumb their nose and move it, or they're so ignorant of the fact of how this is going to play out that we have to illuminate it for them so they can realize that they're about to crash into a proverbial tree.
Or us, they're gonna crash into us, which is probably fun.
Yeah, they would be fine with it. I don't know.
Well, I mean, but honestly, how can anyone come up with general plan policies to address hazards that they haven't even quantified? Now, maybe they are quantified. I don't know.
Yeah, but at least it would be great to get somebody to say, don't worry, we quantified it. At least that would,
Well,
that would be, I mean, I would love to see it.
I'm just gonna wager that they will be general statements.
Yes.
Full of words like equity and justice, and that's all it's gonna be.
Well, to be fair to them, we've never asked it to be quantified, we've just been waiting for
Well, they
it.
have to, I mean, if you're
Well,
gonna,
you would think, but,
if you're going to have a plan of action, you need to know what you're gonna act upon.
okay.
Well, and how much you need to mitigate it.
But
Like,
do-
If you need to mitigate at all, or
yeah, or medium, whatever, but like if you say like, we expect based upon study X, it's gonna heat up by 5 degrees, and in order to do that, we're gonna have to offset it by this, by doing X, Y, and Z.
Or 20 more cooling centers,
Yes,
or whatever.
yes, yeah, or, yeah, whatever.
Well, to be fair, I have until this very day always assumed it was going to be quantified. But what happened was, when I sent this to both Mr. Garrow, the Chief Sustainability Officer, and the regional planning head, saying, hey, this is,
Yeah.
both of them came back saying, we've never told you you're going to have public comments. I'm like, hello, I've been hanging everything on this. So when they said that, to be fair, whoever, I think it was Adrian, emailed back and she said, I am sorry, that was a mistake, we're not taking public comment.
Oh,
And then she said, and these were her, she said that
You were
the
supposed to see
CBA
that
is looking at increased heat projection, increased fire projection, increased drought projection, increased flooding. So those were her words, and I realized, oh my gosh, maybe they're not even quantifying it. So it wasn't until today that the possibility
Yeah,
popped
it
up in my
became
head
a
that they
thing.
might be not quantifying it.
Yeah.
So I don't really know. So my motion is to provide comments on
Yeah,
the
regardless of
CBA, whether or not they want them.
Yeah, I agree.
If it's not quantified, or if it's not comprehensive. If it's quantified and it works for us, I
Fine,
don't,
yeah.
I'd rather not write a letter.
so let's just say there's no public comment at this stage, because it's prematurely, we haven't been thoroughly hosed yet. What point is the public comment gonna happen? Before the general plan?
When
Is it
the-
gonna go all the way to the general plan?
Yes,
And then
yes.
that's when we have a chance to comment?
The safety element draft with an EIR will be out within a month. And that's what was driving me crazy, because according to this, the public comments were supposed to be incorporated in the safety element plan before they wrote it.
What a novel idea.
So,
Well, who's in charge? Like, who's, is this a Catherine Barger thing, or
well,
who
I
is
don't-
this?
I'll be honest with you, the CBA, Climate Vulnerability Assessment, was done by the Chief Executive Office, specifically the Chief Sustainability Office branch of the Chief Executive Office. But the sustainability, the safety element is being done by regional planning. So again, we have two, and the Chief Sustainability Officer felt very bad today. He emailed us, because there does appear to be a disconnect, because we've never said we're going to accept public comment. I'm like, well, this is a county thing. I don't know.
Yes.
It says County of Los Angeles right there. So, I don't know. Since the issue just came up, obviously, we will CC.
Well, I think including that handy-dandy slide in with our letter saying, hey, we were never notified that we passed this step, so we're just submitting them because we didn't get a date, and appears that
And
somehow
we've
this
been
is
waiting
falling
for
off.
it, yeah.
Well, maybe it's fallen off your radar and we just wanted to,
No, we've been told it never was on the radar.
that's fine, yeah, well, whatever. But it was on the radar at some point, so like, my point is just like, here's your slide from you guys.
Yeah.
It said there's a public comment period, we are taking part of the public comment period, whether you like it or not. You can go ahead and round file it, do whatever, but we submitted our public comments.
Right, and it should be, we will submit it as part of the safety element update, so it will go in the record.
Yes.
That
There you
there
go.
is a legal record for that. But to be fair, if it's quantified and it's comprehensive, then we don't need to bother you with that, right? I
Well,
wouldn't
as long
want to
as it's
bother.
correct.
Well, that's what I meant.
Well,
If it's-
except
if it's
for I do have an issue with that nobody along, like, at some point they thought, yeah, we need to have the comment period, and then all of a sudden, no, we don't. And then that's, and like,
That's the town council's gonna verify that we're actually
well,
putting out real information.
I just mean, that in itself, that's a separate problem, but like, that's a big problem, like,
I
that makes logical sense, that you would have a public comment period before you get all the way down the road, and then you're like, hey, like, you know, here's our thing, oh, everybody's got a problem with it, oh, well, here we are, we're at the end stage, yes or no. It seems like you'd want to get the feedback here, so maybe we could, I don't know, address things, so that by the time it gets here, at least you said, we talked to them, they didn't like their ideas, they're terrible.
Yeah.
And we just went ahead and moved on.
Right.
That'd be okay too. Not really, but it would be at least
Better.
something. Yeah. Then, oh, you weren't supposed to see that. It's the old slide. That's the time about this. It's a terrible idea.
Cheesesteak in Spain, so much cheesesteak, just kidding.
Crazy.
There's no man-mind here.
So-
That's my crux of why that we have to do this, and I do think it's important and imperative that we include and say,
I agree.
we were told there'd be public comment period.
I agree.
I was told there'd be clowns, we're the
Oh, it's
clowns.
just the county bar region, but it's also county CEO.
Yeah, I don't care who it is, it just, at some point, the county said, so even if that, then who at the county is receiving? If Mr. Hero is not accepting the comments, who is? Because somebody's accepting
I
comments.
asked that.
I know you did.
I did. I said, okay, fine.
Just tell me who to get the comments, who's the comment person?
He's got upper English too.
And this was promoted on their program.
No,
so-
that's my point.
This was given to the planning commission in September.
Yeah.
I don't like the arbitrary stuff with that. It's like,
What I don't understand is why is it only us seeing these things?
there's nobody else's.
Now, isn't this Darrell guy under the executive?
Yes.
He is the chief sustainability officer within the chief executive office.
Right, so therefore, he's an appointed person that is beholden to the board.
Yes.
Well, beholden to the board.
Almost like a,
Well, to the board.
Like a
But I kind of feel badly for the guy because he's like, hey, we never promised. And that's fair because it was regional planning that's promising it. But it's regional planning is writing the safety element. That only affects us, not the county.
Right, but if this is coming out of the executive's office, there's no way for it to be vetted.
I agree. Oh,
Okay, so that's why it shouldn't even be originating from there.
I agree, but I believe that another group should have done the CBA. That ship sailed with the sustainability.
Yes, the one with accountability to people.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't like it. None of this county is
They're rolling fast so hard on this
Yep,
stuff,
yep.
and they're ignoring general plan stuff, so.
Just trying to get it passed.
So I move that the ATC provide comments on the CBA, and then we submit those comments to the CEO and regional planning and Supervisor Barber's office, so that they will be factored into the safety element.
Second?
I second that.
All right.
Kelly, you okay down there, girl?
No, I'm gonna send it.
She's gonna send
She
it.
is.
Okay.
I wrote it out.
Yeah.
I saw her writing as fast as she could.
Okay, we're
Her
good.
hand was smoking down there. I was
Yeah.
worried it was gonna start some climate change. All in favor?
I.
Opposed? All right, motion's carried. Thank you. All right, trails.
Something humor.
Pam, do you want to report?
Just
on
gets
trails?
better and
No.
better.
We're gonna need a monorail to hold all our motions.
What?
So we're gonna need the monorail to hold all our
And then
motions.
the county's gonna need a levitating trash can to carry them all to the landfill. Before the-
I don't have a motion for this one.
Okay, so-
I was going to throw it to Pam if you don't mind, to report on the meeting.
I can't do it, Jackie, you
You were
did.
there.
I was there, but
I heard
it was,
I heard
it was above my head. I'm telling you guys, I don't even know what she was talking about half the time.
Is this department?
She just nodded her head.
Jackie, was there any
great decisions made?
Well, okay, so,
No.
next time we need to have more people there.
Yeah.
So we gotta really.
All right, so I don't even know what this is. Can you
Okay,
briefly
so
explain the deal?
you were involved in
Oh,
one
we
of the
did.
meetings.
It's a
We have,
quarter meeting.
I'm very grateful.
That's why it's not making sense.
Parks and Recs have, okay, sorry, it's on item number.
No, since I shuffled things around.
Parks and Recs has been, okay, after the terrible event of the planning commission hearing on the Acton CSD, where we had a lot of concerns with trails and with public works, Parks and Recs has really come forward. They did a tour here, which many of us participated in. They have had quarterly meetings trying to address, well, they're giving us progress on what they're making progress on. So this most recent meeting, which was just the other day, and Pam was there, they talked about how they, we said the trails through the south part down through the Conservancy land within the riverbed have been blocked off. They're working with Conservancy to get it open, so they're doing a great job there. But the issue that still remains is what they're going to do and how they're going to work with other county departments to achieve the trail goals and policies in the AV plan and the county general plan. That's been the question we've asked every single time. And we have given, remember we picked one place, the Acton Avenue, access to Parker Mountain as the poster child for trying to get, hey, let's think outside the box and solve this problem, right? So we threw some ideas out. They got batted back last week. They said, well, we don't believe that they meant basically the way it was worded, but we'll have to talk to county council. I'm like, fine, we'll discuss with county council. And then there were several public works people on the call, and it was awesome. I was so grateful to have them. And so the public works folks were talking about, because we asked specifically, how is it that public works is able to get road dedications on ministerial commercial development, any ministerial development, but Parks and Recs can't get a trail dedication? And we pulled the example, Dollar General gave up an extra 2 or 3 feet of road that Public Works made them. So if Public Works can get road dedication on a ministerial development, Parks and Rec should be able to get a trail dedication. So he stepped through and he pointed the ordinance that they rely on, and it made sense. And I said, okay, this is great. So it's an ordinance, here's the language. What we need is an identical ordinance adopted by the board that's for trails. Boom. Yeah. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. So the first thing that...
And she told them that, easy peasy too.
I don't think I said the lemon squeezy.
No, you didn't say lemon squeezy, but you said easy peasy.
So the first thing is, O'Connor says, is, well, that's not going to help you with your real problem, like with your...
What's my real problem?
She goes, it doesn't help you on the residential development. I said, I don't have a problem with residential development. We have offers of dedication made with in public easements until they're accepted, and the public works guy, boom, he pulled it right up on the screen. And he goes, are you talking about this? And I'm like, yep, that's it, because I highlighted it and sent it to them. And he was like, yeah, that's, yep, public access. So I turned to Ms. Connor, but this is all remotely, obviously, and I said, that's why we're not worried about residential development. The county has not accepted a road, to my knowledge, in this town in almost 30 years. They've never accepted the forecast roads, and those are beautiful, right? So there's not a concern for not being able to use, horses not being able to use roads in residential areas, because very few residential areas where it's a problem, right? And so our concern is with new development on commercial and all those other things. And so kind of didn't go anywhere with that. And then we went back to, well, we don't think we can do that because of public, county council, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And so then I said, look, you don't like this idea, that's fine. I'm just trying to help. You guys have the obligation to implement the general plan. And it says you will have connected trails, you will have feeder trails, they're unmapped, besides the regional backbone trails. You have told us over and over and over, you will not get trail dedications unless they're mapped. That is completely inconsistent with the general plan. So we are asking again, how are you going to get these unmapped feeder trail, blah, blah, blah. And there was not, it was quiet. And then Ms. O'Connor said, our system isn't, you know, it's gonna require coordination with Public Works and Parks and Recs, and it's a process, and there isn't a system set up. I'm like, you guys don't get to say that. Your system is supposed to fit to the
They
general
create the
plan.
system, yeah.
You don't just get to ignore what the general plan says because you haven't created your system in a way that works. And so this is our third meeting. We're now on like 7 or 8 months of this. I'm very grateful for them. But I think we need to hold tight on this. So, and then, okay, then the other thing came up. This is really good. So they want, you know, we had meetings with trails people. And they've agreed to do the GPS thing like Mr. Kessler did. And they're out there riding around. But we asked them to do all the GPS and we put it together and submit it to the county. Well, what came out of this meeting was they want us to put it up on their map, like as it comes in. So have each horse rider come and do that. And I'm like, okay, that's great. You just need to tell us how, because we don't have.
Talking about GIS?
Yeah.
Yes, they have a map, but they've never, like, we don't have, what do you call it?
To upload or
What do you call it? Power authority, what a user.
Oh, admin.
Admin, yeah.
All we have is
So there's a layer on GIS.
Yeah, I mean, they've never told us to just
How
do
do you
this,
get it to them?
make the file MPEG and make it link to some sort of GIS track, blah, blah, and then hit this button. So I said, okay, we'll start doing that. You just give us the
Yes,
instruction. I'll get it out to everybody in the equestrian community.
it'll get done. Yeah.
And boom, it'll happen. So Ms. O'Connor said she would, you know, get us that administrative authority, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do
That
it.
seems huge.
Well, apparently it's very simple.
No, that seems like a huge
Step forward.
Step forward.
It is a huge step forward, and I'm very grateful for it. As soon as
Until we get it.
we have to get it first, though. So, that was a great thing. I should have led with that. I apologize.
Jackie, excuse me, what about all the GIS tracking that the Trails Council did for several years, a number of years ago, and all that was turned in? Where is it?
Okay.
You know,
I have Mr. Hemsley's and Mrs. Hemsley's files. I have 4 boxes in my garage, so I have all of their stuff. But according to, you know, and they showed me the trails map that came of it. That map is what the county has adopted, and for some reason, the culmination of all that effort was simply trails on Escondido Highway, Soledad Canyon Road, and Sierra Highway. I understand what you're saying, but even the map that Mr. Hemsley gave me, this was just, he just moved to Idaho or somewhere. And so before he left, I met with he and Leona, right? Leona, and took all their stuff. But they were saying, this is the map it's supposed to be. And it is the map that was adopted. But it's not good where those trails are. So I have the boxes. I probably have some GPS files on a disc in the box. I haven't had a chance to go through all the boxes. There's several of them.
I have 2 boxes that Sharon Richardson gave me, and she used to be one of the people in charge of the Trails Council. And she was there at the time they did all the GIS tracking. And I wonder if there's some stuff that are in the boxes I have, because when she retired, she wanted to get rid of everything and asked me, you know, what to do with it. I said, I'll take it. It's all archive stuff for me. So that's how I got it.
If you have like a CD or whatever,
I haven't gone in through the boxes either. It's a
I can
time-consuming
send it on to them
process.
to add it. But I'm a little bit hesitant because if it's just where the trails ended up now, we're in a terrible position. So it's like, according to even, so that's why, one of the reasons why we're really supporting this, everybody ride, you know.
So that we get it documented in the tool that they're using now, and we know what it.
Let's say we're able to get this into the GIS system.
No.
Now, I mean, obviously that's not.
Well,
What does that do? How does that get us closer to our goal, other than they know exactly the
They can no
areas?
longer deny that there's a trail.
right.
I mean, it's on the GIS. Is that official? I mean, is that?
Well,
Does it have
no,
to be
then I'm
adopted
going
somehow?
to use that to amend the trails map. So I think the theory is
They become
that,
map trails and that, I mean.
yes, so all of our connector and feeder trails now become part of the map trails. But they have told us that they are only mapping regional trails. So there's a huge gap again between what they told us and what they're asking us to provide. So it could be that we're just providing all this data to them, but it's not going to end up in the final map because they're only mapping regional trails.
Yeah.
So I don't, honestly, I don't know.
Unless-
So I try to bypass this whole
Is
thing.
there,
I
is
just
there a
said-
definition of, what's their definition of a regional trail?
It's in the general plan, we talked about it.
Well, because I'm gonna give, maybe go, maybe a bridge too far. Perhaps they're just gonna classify them as regional trails? And just remove the feeder lane and.
Well,
just ignore it,
that
which would be okay too, like.
That would be great.
Every trail is part
However,
of the regional system.
I don't
I
know,
don't
maybe.
believe they're going to do that,
Yeah.
because the first thing we asked them before we did all this was, okay,
Do you
just
think they're
take
just trying to keep it busy
every,
then?
just take every dirt road in Acton
And make it a trail?
and make it, put a trail on it, because when we took them on a tour, we drove down Seabrook
Yeah,
towards the
there's
high
horses
school,
coming.
and there were horses coming. I
Yeah.
sent them pictures of horses in the Jack in the Box drive-thru. So I mean, they're everywhere. Any place there's a house, you should assume there's a horse. So just put them on all the roads. And because then any subdivisions going forward, we're already going to have that because they have to be.
So I felt good about it, now I feel less good.
No, because then they said, no, we can't do that. That is too big.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm thinking, if we give them all of these trails, I don't know what that means.
That's what I'm getting at, is it almost feels like a way to keep us busy, like, oh yeah, go back to trails.
Well, that's why I want this
And then-
map within the.
That sounds like hundreds of hours of work.
No,
Yeah,
I don't think so.
that's what I was worried
I don't
about
think
too.
so.
No, I don't think the burden is to it, I just meant like, here, they're doing this, and they think that we're having a desired outcome, but they don't have any, the
Plan
same
to do it.
plan to do it, so
It's
it's just more
Lucy and
like,
football.
yeah, it's like, yeah, here, go ahead, go do it, yeah.
Another
map all the
quarterly
trails.
meeting.
Well, put them on the GIS, and you go, great, what does that mean? They go, oh, nothing, we just have it on the GIS, and you're like,
Well,
You know, but at least they're in a language they can understand.
agreed. No, I think there's value in it that way. I do think we need to try to get them to the point of like, great, we're gonna get this all in there. What does that accomplish for our goal? Our goal is to have it as map trust. Does this move us closer to that goal, or what is that bias?
right.
Is it, it's in the GIS system and you guys can now ignore it in your own system instead of just us telling you? Or what?
But we'd have to ask the question.
I know, I know, but that's essentially what we're asking in more polite and manner. But essentially, is great. We're going to map this. We're going to help you do it. It's a big lift. We're going to help you do that because we have the army of folks on horses that are going to do it, and that's going to be great. Fine, but what does that do to get us closer to the goal? If the answer is it doesn't, which it feels like it is. It feels like everybody's avoiding saying that by just
Well, the next
saying,
logical step is, okay, now, once they're in, what do we do next?
yes.
Right, and to be fair, I did it, I was like, what we really need to know is how you're going to achieve these goals and process in the general.
Well, yeah,
And-
but he might be more right just by narrowing it down, like, what's the next step?
All right.
Just, we map them, now what?
Right.
And so.
I say blue, you read blue, it looks
Yeah.
blue, now what do we do?
Okay, yeah, now what's the next step? Now they say, well, then that's it. And I think we've arrived at our conclusion of what.
Well, then, you know what, what we really need then is to have the Western community do as much as we can in the next 6 weeks, submit it to them well before the next
Yes,
board meeting.
yeah.
And it's now set for January 6th.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask, is when's the next one?
January 6th, I don't know exactly what time, so I'm hoping that, and hopefully some horse people will come too. I don't know what's happened to Mr. Kessler, he's not,
Well, he's not responding. I think he's still in Florida. I tried to reach him, and I think he's moving there, but I'm not sure.
I think he is based upon
okay.
his employer and.
Well, as soon as we hear the word from Ms. O'Connor on how to upload to their system,
Yeah, because they didn't have any idea of how we could even present our trails.
they made it clear they want us to be doing it as we go.
As each rider,
Because in our meeting that we had with the trails people, we were assembling it all and we were gonna hand it to them.
And then
That is not what
they want us to, go to this site, upload the file, or go to this.
but then my question is, will that actually get put onto their map?
Well, so I don't think I
Or
question you. I'm kind of, so let me put on my technical
That's
hat
Tom's
for a minute.
question.
Well, my technical hat for a minute says, gee, the level of access they're providing, which is why you're like, wow, that seems like that's a lot, is being able just to arbitrarily add something like let's say somebody accidentally turns on their GPS and walks around their yard for 3 hours, and that becomes now part of the trail, like, who's doing the cleanup, who's looking at the thing, and go like, hey, you're saying, so you're just uploading, no, so my point is just, I'm almost wondering if somebody in a meeting promised something that, like, took it back, and then somebody in the office like, hell no, we're giving all these people access to just upload trails, like, what are you, on drugs? And they're like, oh, crap, well, we'll just be quiet until somebody comes
Well,
along.
I don't know, I don't think so, I think that they're gonna get back to us, I think they're trying to figure, see, the Mr.
No,
Mike
but that's
is
what,
not-
no, but that's what I'm getting at. I think there's a huge, let me put it this way. In my line of work, if somebody came in and was like, hey, I promised like all these random customers that like have like administrative access to upload whatever, I'd be like, you're on drugs, we can't do that. Like, we need to find a different way to do it. And so there may be some negotiating, trying to figure out what that looks like. I think it's also a little bit of them pushing work off on the community, and instead of us just handing a bunch of files and saying like, you uploaded, like, we did all this.
Yeah.
So I don't care, at the end of the day, as long as we get it. I'm worried that what they've set up is what's gonna impede this getting done by saying, we're gonna let you do it. It is gonna take more time than if we just gave it to the dude and he's gotta sit there.
I felt like they were just postponing it.
Yes,
That they were
yes,
just
well,
putting us off.
We just asked them, look,
Yeah.
send it, when can we come and get trained on how to put our trails into the system?
Yeah.
And they'll have to provide somebody to show you how to do it,
Did
because it's gonna have some level of complexity.
They were
that's-
just gonna, no, it was just supposed to be used.
Did they give, is there any, did they give any kind of idea or ETA? Okay, so I think, well, the meeting was what, last?
It was on Wednesday?
Wednesday.
Yeah, Wednesday, Thursday, yeah, so,
Chuck was there,
I mean, I would say
The trails.
in a couple of days, I think we can squeaky wheel and just, hey, just
I
wanted
would
to
just
say,
say, we're ready to put information in, can we get some training?
Okay.
And I know there's 3 riders that are out there documenting
well,
where they're
my other
riding
fear
every
is,
day.
well, that's my other fear is that we're gonna get in some goofy format that they needed in some.
Have to redo the whole thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm, or at least have to like
Well,
translate.
we asked them to use the same format as Mr. Kessler, and Mr. Kessler coordinated with
Okay,
them,
all right,
so,
so there's been some level of,
but if they have it in a different format, then we do have that.
Yeah.
You know, when they need to fix that. But to be fair, they really should just put every place where there's a road,
GPX.
because every house should be connected.
Just waypoints.
That's what a connector trail is, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's what a feeder trail is. Okay.
All right, well, cool, all right, well, so.
We will do that, but you guys try to be available on January 6th if you can. But listen to you guys.
Yeah, it'd be nice if we had a couple of the trails people too.
Yeah,
I think it's.
Well, we're gonna, Pam and I, we talked about the Trails Committee, we're gonna try to get another Trails group together. Once we get the magic key on how to do it, so.
What's the format that how you want us to get the information? And it's got to be easy enough that people are going to actually, I mean, it's one thing these people are out riding, and I know there's 3 ladies that are riding every day on a different trail. So now we need to get that information into you, but don't make it so darn difficult that we're...
Or just give it, in fact, I might even, I think about it a little more, it might even work something like, while you guys are working out your thing, is there any way we just keep providing the files in the meantime that you can upload it to? We'll happy to take it over once you have the system in place, but we'd like to start getting some of that data.
Oh, okay, well, yeah.
That way, there maybe it's a way to put pressure while also being helpful. Like, we're happy to put it in, but since it's taking a little bit longer, who should we be sending these to? So that
we don't even know who or who's going to do it.
Who's our contact person?
We don't have a contact person yet. So
okay.
they put it back on us, but
But I think we can handle
we
it.
can't even move forward really until...
Well, I think that's what we said. Hey, we got some data collected. We'd love to provide it. Did you have a chance to get that together? If not, who should we be sending this data to while we wait for that access from you?
Waypoints at la.gov.
Waypoint tips at LA. Okay. Thank you for the update. Election.
Oh, okay, the election committee report is that I have received 3 applications with checks included.
Yay. Who are they? How many seats are available?
4,
Oh.
I got Tom, Troy, and Kelly.
Oh, yay, thank you guys.
And I did not receive,
Nobody else?
Continue until
I did not receive another
So we're
one
gonna
from,
hold out for them all around.
The gal who said she wanted to at the last meeting, she didn't put anything in?
no?
we still have an empty seat.
And so I check the mail every day, and then.
Well, the deadline's passed, right?
Yeah.
Yes, it
We
is,
extend it to the 30th and.
and we're done.
Because we didn't get it.
Somebody needs to make a motion
To suspend the election.
So tell me what it is on the motion.
to, you have to.
I couldn't
We have
hear
to
you,
waive the election.
I move that we waive the election because only 3 applicants.
For 4 states.
And I'll second that.
All right,
Okay,
any other discussion?
All in favor?
I just think, yeah, me, everybody, yeah.
I didn't write that motion.
I didn't hear you, John, what did you say?
You
I
said
think I
that.
abstained actually because,
That's what I was like, it seems weird for you guys to vote on.
yeah.
So I think it would,
Okay,
I think
so
it would
But
be,
we don't have a quorum then. 'cause it's-
I think then I would step in and vote.
Yeah,
No, even then, we don't have a quorum.
we,
Yeah, Kelly, there's
Oh,
4.
Kelly's still.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, but no, the election was designed so that you should always be able to have that, so.
Only if you have a full complement, which we don't. But,
Sure.
yeah, okay, never mind.
Yeah, well, whatever. All in favor?
Aye.
Kelly? Are you,
Aye.
Bruce's man? All right, motion's carried.
Thank you.
All right. Home stretch, council member comments.
The only comment I've got is that I, with permission from the president, I paid for our PO box for another year. We've only been paying it 6 months at a time because of our finances, but we actually had the $322. So it's paid from the end of September to, yeah, no, 1 year.
Oh, 1 year.
This is some
1 year.
very generous donations.
Yes, we have gotten, and we've made some sales with the help of my assistant, who prefers to remain anonymous on the little tags.
Thank you, Anonymous.
Yeah,
Keep acting rural.
yes.
Thank you.
Um, No, I just can't wait till I don't have to wear a mask anymore.
Hey,
Can you tell me what Dr. Ferrer's threshold is? Is it 0
it's a negative
COVID
case.
cases before we can finally take these things out?
Oh, I have no clue.
Are you saying she doesn't have a threshold? She's just like
It
mask?
hasn't told me, so that's just because I don't know.
Tell me if you
How do I
Chinese
find
that.
out?
We could ask her when, and so,
Yeah,
I would never get answers from
yeah, we'll ask her what it is. It's probably tied to those state levels that the state announced back in June 15 of like substantial community commission, moderate community transmission. That's what I'm guessing, but that's just my guess. Because that's what they've been talking about. That the level that's going now, it's been in the, I don't know, a widespread community transmission. And
Do you remember what they say the current vaccination rate is for LA County?